Now I can just lay back. Vico's just getting refreshes for me, getting all the mats. He's just doing everything. He's literally the best player.
What is up, everyone? It's your boy Levin2K, and I am in the lobby with the one and only Flixie. How you doing today, bro?
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Good to be talking with you. Let's jump into it. You are playing with Vico now, and you guys have been lighting up Major 3. You guys have been one of the better teams in EU so far this season. Talk to me about what it's been like playing with Vico for the first time.
Playing with Vico is like so much fun. Like before I played with Vico, I always, like the 2 seasons before I played with Janice, so I was like kind of the fragger and Janice was like yelling, but now I can just lay back. Vico's just getting refreshes for me, getting all the mats. He's just doing everything. He's literally the best player.
When you look at how you guys play, you're both super aggressive. You guys will fight anybody in the lobby. Have you ever had like this much confidence in a teammate when, you know, fighting before?
Before I played with Vico, I've never had that much confidence in my teammate. Every time we get in a fight, I know if I'm low or something, I can just heal. Vico's just the best fighter this season, especially this season. He's primed up, and I think it's even better for him because he's talking German now. Last season he talked English, and in German comms he's just playing way more confident. He doesn't need to think about anything.
Talk to me about the preparation for semis and grands. How are you going to make sure that you are going to be in the best position possible come grand finals?
For semi-finals, I'm pretty confident. I feel like we can just do what we did in Cash Cup finals. What our goal is for every game is to get the forecast tower early on, try to get as much search as possible, and then go for a bunker, and then we can just try to win the game. So I feel pretty confident for semi-finals, and I think we easily can win a game.
Is there anything about your playstyle right now that you feel like you need to change going into grand finals and semi-finals?
Like right now in Cash Cups, search is pretty low, so we don't need that much damage, and we can do our things how we do it right now. But in grands, we're gonna need to play more congested sides, so we see more players, get more search, and we need to change our game plan a bit.
It's interesting you mentioned Surge, right? Because I feel like that was an area you and Janice struggled in the past. What made you decide to stick with Reckless Railways, even though, you know, Surge can be so hard to get from there?
At the start of the season, me and my coach, we looked for a different spot, but then, I didn't not place because of my spot, I placed because I played the spot wrong. So I feel like it's not about the spot, it's about me. And I still think Reckless isn't the easiest spot to get search from, but I feel like we can definitely cook something up and get a good strategy.
Yeah, you put in that work, and it's paying off. This has been In the Lobby with Flixie. It's been an absolute pleasure, man. See you in the next one.
See you.
welcome to day 2 of the FNCS Major 3 semi-finals. I'm Frankie Ward, and the action we saw yesterday was blazing hot, so I can't wait for even more Fortnite. And joining me to discuss the action is, of course, Miniminer and 11-2K. We couldn't do this show without them. 11-2K, talk me through the look today. We're going very classic. It looks like you're playing tribute, actually, to Carter.
So actually what I did is I looked back to see what I wore last season, and I'm just matching that day for day. Last season, day 1, white top, day 2, black top. So today, black top, you know, to match last season, yeah.
So grey top tomorrow.
I need to check what I did last season for tomorrow, and then you'll see tomorrow.
It was so memorable. And Miniminer, I was admiring your red top earlier. It's just like you got the memo. I was going to be wearing some red. You're wearing red.
Yeah, we'll go with that if that's the narrative you want to go with. I just found some colour, you know. Usually it's just either a black or white or grey. You know, I'm like Levin. I like to keep it simple, but I thought, you know what, let's mix it up a little bit here. Let's go for a bit of dark red.
We've really given the people what they want today. Yeah. Top banter. I'm sure the chat is absolutely loving it. You know what I'm loving? I'm loving the fact that we're getting the 30 best duos from the lower bracket yesterday joining us in the upper bracket today. Starting with Nebs and Kadira Miniminer, because they had a fantastic day yesterday.
Yeah, they did. Of course, they had an amazing day yesterday, coming out on top in that lower bracket. They had 2 victory royales, and they just played really well overall. They just seemed to be a different class to the rest of the lobby. From watching back some of their games as well, they just played height really well. They were able to take advantage of those games that they did make it to endgame. Of course, landing at Grim Gate as well. We saw there just winning off spawn more often than not, and today they are actually uncontested at Grim Gate. So I do expect this team to have a really good day today, because Nebs is one of those players, Levin, that can just literally pull anything out of the hat at a moment's notice. Absolutely.
I think when you look at their success in the lower bracket yesterday, it came down to them being able to be super aggressive and really get into a good flow there. And if they can bring that to the lobby today, which they'll need to be successful, from what we saw yesterday, like to really survive in some of these mid games of how high the surge thresholds have been, they're gonna have to be super aggressive, and they definitely can do that. But again, it's about bringing it in this lobby, coming out of Grim Gate. It's not the easiest spot in the world to land at this season, so I reckon they'll do well today.
I feel like it would be rude to talk about Kadiro, not talk about his ex-duo partner, Kiro, who's now teamed up with Mappy, and they've also made it out the lower bracket 11, but they haven't necessarily had such a great major so far.
Yeah, it's been a bit rocky for them at times. I think when you look at when they came together last season, it was a duo that not many people had high expectations of instantly, but they quickly changed that by performing fantastically. And then going into grand finals, everyone's expected them to top 10. Everyone thought they were going to do really well. They come 21st, and it really just felt Miniminer like this was a team that had a honeymoon period and carried that through the season, and it sort of wore off, and so they're not at that same level. The key to their success a lot of the time last season was them just having a very solid game plan that allowed them to get to end games consistently, and from there those guys would cook and be super aggressive together in getting refreshes. They need to do that again today.
Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, even last season, just before grand finals, they had a first place in the Duo Cash Cup just before that, so they were looking on form. This season, their best Duo Cash Cup placement has only been 21st. They had a lot of sort of like top 3,000, top 4,000 placements together. In fact, Mappy's second best Cash Cup placement was with Diox this season, not even with his duo. So it seems like there's a few problems going on here. Hopefully they can fix it sooner rather than later.
In yesterday's action, we did see 5 duos get victory royales and put their space in the grand finals. But it'll be interesting to talk about a couple of duos who perhaps underperformed despite holding on to their place in the upper bracket today. And to be honest with you, the first duo that comes to mind, Miniminer, is Cringe and Volko.
Yeah, Cringe and Volko, we expected big things from yesterday. We hyped them up at the beginning of the show. We talked about their strategy, their ability to play Surge, their ability to win off spawn more often than not, and just their overall game plan was really, really solid going into yesterday. Unfortunately, though, when it came to yesterday, they struggled so much. It seemed like Storm Surge was a big issue for them. Of course, they're landing at Lavish Lair, and so many of the teams down on the south side of the map have those cacti to get some Storm Surge tags, to trade Surge with other teams. They don't have that on the north side of the map, so more often than not, they were just getting caught like we saw Volko doing there, just caught out in the open, which is very uncharacteristic for this Duo 11, because we associate this duo so often with a really, really solid game plan that they can replicate every single game.
Yeah, look, it's no surprise that they struggled with Surge when you watch how some of those games went yesterday. I mean, the reality is, if you want to be good on Surge, head south, sit on a cactus. You know what I mean? You're going to be all right. And they have the ability to do that coming out of Lavish there, right? We saw teams from the north quickly looting up and rushing down to the south, right? To be able to do that and play Surge that way. And they have the ability to do that with the ring that's sort of further south from Lavish. So we'll see if they switch things up drastically today.
I want to see another duo switch things up drastically, Levin, though. I want to see Reason and Vidil get a victory royale, because this was a duo you had high hopes for yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. It was weird. It felt like a very uncharacteristic day from them, because a lot of the time you look at Reason and Vidil this year, and they're not necessarily going to be, you know, the team that looks the most stacked or looks the most like best set up in any given position to win and be successful. This was a bit of an unfortunate elimination there.
Yeah,
but for the most part, right, Minnie, is part of the genius of this team is that when they get in those situations, they're one of the best teams at getting out of them, and they're one of the best teams at winning when they're a bit scuffed, or, you know, being able to pick a fight and win a fight against a team that has more loot than them. And it just wasn't really clicking for them yesterday. The penny wasn't quite dropping, and so there were a lot of fights where you typically would expect them to win, and they just simply weren't. And it meant that, you know, they couldn't really solidify any good end games.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I was looking back at a lot of their games yesterday night and just trying to figure out what exactly went wrong for them. And it was those fights just outside of Sandy Steps, usually one of them going down. Then they had to go and reboot. It caused them a lot of problems later on down the line with Storm Surge, like we highlighted earlier. And it just caused them to have their strategy set back a few minutes with that big reboot. I mean, in fact, they didn't even get a better placement than 17th yesterday, and that was their very last game. So they really need to be starting to make it into those upper echelon of placements if they want to find more success today.
The problem is triple con today, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday they had it, you know, they were a bit con sometimes by Tidy a couple times, like that would split it, but like this time they got Kawama and Rerex there, another duo that, like, it is not an easy situation or an easier situation for them today than yesterday. It's going to be harder, so they're going to have to really step up.
Well, let's see if they can stand their ground, because game one is coming in just a bit. But right now, let's actually check in with Takata and Jacob PR, because I'm interested to hear their thoughts on the action today.
Thank you so much, Frankie. Look, there's a lot of interesting things going on. I know Lev and Minnie were talking about Reason Vidil, but there's also Queasy Veno, or there's Queasy Thomas, sorry. There's Murstache Malabuka, there's Cammy and Seti. These are 4 duos that have won matches previously in day 1 of upper bracket semifinals, but none of those 4 duos won a game yesterday, Jacob, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's just a whole drastic shift in how the lobby is playing out these games. The Cactus were added in this season, and everybody is beelining those like a magnet to a fridge. They run down towards those cactuses using the nitro rings, no matter where they're at on the map. And that's why I like you mentioned Queasy and Thomas from the Class C courts, almost the far north that you can get, and you still find them using those nitro rings to get down to the south side of the map. And that's what we've seen throughout the day yesterday on both of these regions. And I'm kind of thinking whoever can adapt the best will do the best and win one of these games.
Yeah, so it's a similar format to yesterday where winner kind of takes all. You qualify directly to the grand finals if you win one of the 5 matches that are being played out today, but it's a new set lobby. 30 duos qualified from the lower bracket. You got names like Nebs Kiduo, Aquanoa, Mappy Kiro, a lot of big names that are going to be competing today for the first time in the upper bracket. So we'll see who takes it home, but first there's more to break down on the desk, so let's head back to Frankie, Levin, and Minnie.
Thank you very much, guys. I love it when we get to throw to those guys in the pre-show, because they're so much better at explaining this semi-finals format than I am. Now, I wanted to talk to you guys about a piece of kit that we saw continuously during yesterday's games. And it's a classic of the Fortnite oeuvre, shall we say? I don't even know what that word means, but it sounds fancy, so I'm using it anyway. And that is the crash pad. How has this become so essential to everyone's game plan, Levin?
Yeah, I mean, look, we saw it in Major 1 this year, right? The Crash Pad Juniors, we saw how strong they were. They've been added back during the break, so we hadn't seen them before in FNCS, and people just sort of had to pick them up during the break and figure them out. But Minnie, they're pretty easy to figure out, and they're pretty strong, to say the least. It's been good for people because it's a bit of extra mobility outside of just the nitro splashes we've had.
Yeah, you can find a lot of them as well. Of course, green rarity, that uncommon rarity, you can carry 6 of them in your inventory. As you saw there, combining them with the Flowberry Fizz can send you so far in early, mid, and late game as well. So they have so many different options. There's so many different times at which you can use that crash pad, and that's why so many teams are carrying them.
It was really interesting yesterday to see Swizzy and Baniak in particular just really exploiting the crash pad to great effect. And I have to say, I think it's one of the reasons those end games were so entertaining. Minnie, do you want to take us through an example of the crash pad in action?
Yeah, well, let's take a look at some early to mid-game examples of how you can use this to your advantage if you're a team doing it. A couple of examples here. Polish doing it very, very well. Gets an elimination, can cover so much ground to get that final elimination. Even Levin being able to dive bomb onto players just unsuspectingly, because you don't get any audio when there's a player doing this to you. So for Artist right there, he had absolutely no idea until it was too late.
Yeah, those crash bombing plays are some of my favorite, right? One of my all-time favorite clips in an FNCS is a clip of Thomas from Major 1 doing it to a player in a bush, right? And it's like he takes out both players. Like, you just can't see it coming if you're the team on the receiving end of it. And so those plays are so prominent in the early mid-game to, again, get yourself some early damage, to find some eliminations, to close out eliminations. It is so strong, but it doesn't end there, right? Because the crash pads still have incredible use come the later stages of the game when the distances are even smaller in the lobby. So why don't we just take a look at some late game examples of where people are using it and where it's really strong.
Yeah, of course. There's a couple of main ways that teams are using them in late game. More often than not, it is just to rotate horizontally to get to the front side of zone. We see Swizzy doing that right here. You don't even have to use Flowberry Fizz sometimes, because sometimes it genuinely sends you too far. So you just have to use the crash pad. But I think one of the other main ways that we were seeing it yesterday in particular, Levin, was to do this. Vertical ability, vertical gain on the high ground team, and just the ability to get yourself up there all the way as quickly as possible. We even saw Chap and Teeny doing it at the exact same time as Swizzy and Vanya yesterday. So it just has so much power, so much potential for teams to take that high ground so easily. And that's a big factor as to why we saw so much mess up there yesterday.
Yeah, that was like the key factor to the end games that we watched yesterday. Everybody just going up with them. You see just a quick look up, Flowberry Fizz, crash pad up. We even saw solos doing it. Malabuka here as a solo, having the power to take down a duo. Now, to be fair, not everyone can do this. This is Malabuka we're talking about here. But again, it's just so easy for him to just go up. You know, Cringe has no idea. Cringe and Vocal are a very good team, but they just ain't got a clue what's hit them. And yeah, we saw so many different people just doing that non-stop. Like, it's why it was really hard for anyone to hold height consistently yesterday. And we're going to see much more of it again today.
I think it's one of my favorite mobility items I've seen in FNCS in a really long time. As I was saying earlier, I mean, it's a classic item. I'm sure everyone has used or come across a crash pad in their time of playing Fortnite, no matter how long you've been playing it for. But the way that it was used so dynamic yesterday was just bringing me life, as I think I actually said on the show. However, we do have quite a lot of duos who have not taken a victory royale so far that we would expect to. Obviously, Mercedes and Malabuka, Queasy and Thomas came so close yesterday, as did Cammy and Seti. Do you think it's going to be the big names taking a victory royale today, Levin?
I think it'd be very easy for us to go down that route and say exactly that, just because of how good a lot of those teams were yesterday and how close a lot of those guys came. You'd think that with some of the better teams moving out of the lobby now, it gives them a bit more room maybe to do, you know, and come through and get a win. So the likes of Aviko, Flixie, Swizzy, Vanya, of course. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some underrated names maybe sneaking in, right? I remember this time last major we had Dexy and an Eclipse win a game, and you know Dexy was calling it on Twitter beforehand and stuff like that. So maybe we see some teams like that just sneak through and pick up wings as well.
I mean, for Mustache and Malabuka, they're landing red line rig. They're actually contested today by Noah Reddy and Aqua, of course, who came up through the lower bracket. So that's an interesting off-spawn battle that I'm going to have my eyes on today, because Aqua and Noah Reddy, two very, very experienced players in the EU region. They always have potential to come up with a win. I'm pretty sure it might have been Major 1 when these guys managed to pick up a win in this very same format in the semi-final round of the competition. So I think these guys can definitely have what it takes, because we know Aqua, he's always on height, and at the moment, if anyone can hold high, maybe it is Aqua.
Hey, look, Aqua and Noah Riley both led the lobby in semi-finals for damage dealt. Like, they were number 1 and number 2 for damage dealt in all of the semi-finals yesterday, of the lower bracket specifically, of course. And when I saw that, I said, Aqua in leading damage in 2024. Like, my GOAT is back clearly. So Malabuka and Mustache, they got a good duo on their hands today. We'll see how they deal with that.
Levin, you're my GOAT.
What'd you say?
I said you're my GOAT.
I'm your GOAT?
I'm only kidding. We're going to head over to Carl and Jacob here. I'm not kidding. You're both my GOATs. We're going to head over to our casters now to get our next game underway. First of the day, 6 in the semi-finals. Meh.
Thank you so much, Frankie, even out of the GOAT sounds. But let's focus up. This is similar to yesterday. 5 matches are going to be played out where the Victory Royale takes you straight to the grand finals. If you aren't able to do that, top 20 in upper bracket or even the top 30 from the lower bracket will go to day 3 uppers. Jacob, Minnie talked about it. We have a lot of contestation. 3 duos Mount Olympus, 3 duos Sandy Steps. Let's get right into the first match.
Yeah, you talked about a lot of players off the drop, gonna have some problems very, very early. But one thing that we noticed yesterday, some players, that's a blessing. Others, getting that early Storm Surge due to the fight is absolutely necessary. And with the changes that we're talking about, everybody going south for those cactuses, and that's where a lot of those teams are gonna be stacked up on today.
Yeah, we talked about it. Merstash Malabuka were the most contested duo the previous 2 seasons, I believe. And then yesterday, they were on con and they were having trouble with Surge. So hopefully now that they're contested, they're kind of more back in what they've been used to recently. But like you said, the cactuses have played a huge part in the amount of damage that you need to get to not get affected by that Storm Surge later on. But these early game fights can definitely give you that boost. So we'll see if Clement has what it takes.
Yeah. Already getting a little bit of elevation. The Bubble Shield Junior's out. You don't really see those all too often, but when you don't expect them, they could definitely play a role. And I do like this idea to kind of disengage. You don't want to go ahead and put everything on the line in this moment. Neither one of these teams got a beam, an early shot, anything to start to build that confidence. So now they're just kind of stuck in this situation, forced to make a choice. Do I stay? Do I try to fight? Do I get Surge? I have no loot. Or do I go elsewhere to try to get that loot path, to try to get a better inventory?
A lot of choices, a lot of options to make. This is what we were talking about. The Merstash Malabuka up against Noah, Rayleigh, and Aqua. Noah Aqua coming from the lower bracket yesterday. As a reminder, there are players competing in the lower bracket as we see these upper bracket matches. But you got to be careful as Merstash has already been knocked down. Noah now left with just 31 HP. Can Malabuka clean it up? Yes, he can. It's now a 1 versus 1.
Yep, he does have some bandages and the med kit, so 31 HP isn't too much of a worry. It's the time it's going to take. Aqua on the other side just gets slammed down. Okay. Oh my gosh, that shot by Malabuka was insane, and it was so possible because they didn't try to heal up. It was a trade. He thought he had the jump. He went for the 50-50, and Malabuka, that's a fight he wins. And unlike yesterday where he was uncontested, you saw them throughout the day down on Surge. This is how you start the day off hot.
Grab a pillow, grab a blanket. Noah and Aqua are gonna have to take a quick nap before they're ready for game 2. As we switch on over to Vidil and Reason, who were taking some shots. I'm not sure at which duo exactly, but nothing too aggressive so far. They've got a decent loadout. They've got their shields, but still quite a ways to go before they're set for the mid game. Ooh, Della getting cracked alongside for 9, who's gonna box him up now, give him a bit of time to heal up.
Absolutely necessary, because a lot of teams like to rotate through this center of the map. I talked about the cactuses, 3 right there, instant shields. They're going to use that to save as many of the heals as possible. And so for these teams that might not necessarily be there, that's where these early game skirmishes are just a little bit more important, impactful, and kind of dictates the rest of the way you kind of get to play the game. Some might be stuck here, double contested over Pleasant Piazza, and as you can see, other players on the outskirts now moving closer and closer in this direction. There's a lot to be had over here, a bunker, forecast tower, and because it is so wide open outside of those contested fights, there's a lot of room for any teams to roam and steal away that loot.
I'm looking around, mini map, drop map, kind of trying to see what the duos in the surrounding area are looking to do, but it does seem like Pleasant Piazza is quite a popular location in terms of the surrounding areas. You can see how many duos are kind of not necessarily boxed up, but looking for some potential tags before they continue on with their rotate.
Yeah, I think we saw Roban and Fast Roki rotate towards that left side. As Pixie and Yanis trying to make an easier and quicker exit away from Brawler's Battlegrounds. A fight that had all day long yesterday. More and more teams as the day went on moved over in that direction. but they're kind of sticking to that loop path for Howard Combeck. They're under siege right now. One of them's full, just low HP, and a nice shot by Yanis yet again, backing him down, switching targets, making sure that they don't have a strength in numbers. Neither one of the guys can convincingly help each other up until now. They finally managed to get into the same box, but Pixie Yanis still attacking from 2 different sides, and they're playing safe. They're backing up, making sure that if they're going to fire a shot back, it's either going to miss or not be a strong shot that they need.
The pressure continues, though. How long will it take until they break? For Hawa, Combeck trying to do what they can to stay up, but Yanis and Pixie are not slowing down. Be careful, though. Shot from a third party. It's going to crack Yanis, now forced to play back. Pop some minis, pop some heals. Will the opposing duo continue the aggression? If you look at the minimap, though, they were quite far away, so even though they're not going to be pushing them, just that little tag, that crack was enough to stop that aggression.
Yeah, now they know the potential for third parties is all around them, which makes it more and more of a risky fight to take so early on in the game, especially for what's at stake. We talk about win a game and you're into the grand finals, but it's 5 games worth of consistency that's going to keep you in the upper bracket side of things. So you don't want to fall in the hole too early on here in game number 1.
CZB and Nathan, who actually finished almost first place, not including the game winners. The only people ahead of them was Vico and Flixie. They were incredibly consistent yesterday, but they just were not able to secure that victory royale. Will that change today? It's the big question. As we take a look at, speak of the devil, Flixie and Vico, our #1 duo from yesterday on the leaderboard, who did not secure a victory royale in the upper bracket. Will either of these duos be able to do it today? That's what's interesting to me.
Yeah, they were so close yesterday. Second place in that last game where I believe it was Casper and Prism kind of stole it away. I thought he was healing off for just a couple of placement points to reach that leaderboard spot that we were talking about, but nope. It was just to go to the grand finals. You see kind of what the game plan is all over the map. The unfortunate thing is on this side of the map, there's no cactuses to regenerate a lot of the health. Luckily, there is the underworld, not a lot of teams, so a lot of scraps, fire pits, bandages for them to get back into the game. But the longer and longer you stay on this north, especially northwest side of the map, far away from the cactuses when the zone is pulling, it's going to be much harder for you not only to stay alive, but get surge for later on in the game. So even though we're seeing these two guys here, Faded Pigeon trying to get his teammate back, the job is far from over because now they have to get to zone, get loot, and when they finally get there, they're more than likely going to be below the storm surge threshold.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, and the feed of a deal also picking up an elimination. But like you said, there are cactuses, there are a lot of environmental mobility options you can choose from, although those are on the southern side of the map. So for Swizzy, oh wow, look at that loot as well. Swizzy Vanyak, I'm surprised they didn't take a victory royale yesterday, to be fair. We'll see if today that will change.
I'm glad you said that. I'm not the only one that's a little surprised they didn't get in, but I think yesterday it was just such an aggressive day throughout the day yesterday, and it got increasingly more and more aggressive, and we saw them kind of lose their loot going down to teams like Snazy and Podesai early and others that kind of really took them off guard, especially with most of the zones going towards the north side of the map, which is unfamiliar from what we saw in FNCS qualifiers 1 and 2. So I think players today might be a little bit more prepared that the zone can realistically go anywhere on the map.
For Strokey and Raban, though, no problem for them. It's more of a south zone. I might have spoke too soon as it could have potentially pulled back north, but yesterday we saw a lot of north zones, which actually kind of works out for the teams that play around the south side. However, I'd like to see a bit more of those south zones play out as we go back over to Yanis and Pixie, continuing with that aggression. I'm not sure if that was, no, it was a different duo from the original engagement, but they picked up an elimination.
Yeah, only one, so don't know what happened to the original guy, but you can see Yanis, Pixie angles. First shot is going to be a monster one by Yanis. Makes an easy cleanup for Pixie. And unlike the position they were in earlier in the game, they were taking the fight. This time they're at the edge of zone, so they have less and less potential of teams third partying in that direction. So feeling that full confidence to go ahead and take that fight. Cammy and Seti, a team that, when it comes to these FNCSs, I feel like no matter how they're performing day 1, day 2, you kind of expect a team like this to make it through the grand finals at the bare minimum through consistency, because that's what they are. One of the more consistent duos that we have in EU, and they're not known for their aggressive and their powerhouse fragging ability.
Yeah, I think it was Levin that called. He said, Cammy Seti on con today. They're going to take game 1. We'll see if that was true or false. I could be on that boat as well. Flixie, though, put into a potentially dangerous situation as his duo Vico has been knocked down, and it looks like an opposing team is aware of this. Gonna lead them to start pushing towards Flixie, but Flixie's not gonna let that one slide as he goes for the initial connection, getting a huge crack onto Nathan. If he can hold this off like a one-man army and pick his duo back up, it could be huge.
If that was just Tarps and Noya, that would have been an easy fight, an easy decision to make. But as soon as they started to close the distance, in comes Nathan and CZB. In comes another team to over the top of Reckless Railways. And that was the defining moment where he said, I actually can get this revive. Because if they were to push me, it'd be just as risky, if not more risky for them than it would be to go for that single elimination, especially after you got that damage. So a blessing in disguise for Vico and Flixie being able to stay alive. And because the med kits and everything that they've gathered here from Reckless Railways so far, it's almost gonna look like they never went down in the first place.
You gotta be careful in these upper bracket matches. It is the best of the best on EU competing here. So even if it's a 2 versus 1, it could use so much shield, so many materials, and even time that it might not even be worth it to fully commit to that 2v1. So if you get a big shot connected onto you, like what happened to Nathan, they can quickly kind of decide, you know what, maybe we'll just keep on rotating, focus on the late game instead of just one more elimination.
It just gets tough out here, especially when you're so isolated. And if you have the confidence, like Kaido and Hydro look like they do, they're gonna close in. They know they have a straight up 2v2, nobody really in the distance. They started at full health, obviously in their zone, taking tick by tick of damage, so it's not gonna be that easy, and they are gonna be on the clock, but they have more than enough heals. They find an extra med kit to go ahead and quickly use before they continue on with this fight, so that team below them needs to figure out a way to disengage, because I'm not sure they have the resources, I'm not sure they have the material to keep a prolonged fight like this outside of the zone, even if it's not that far away, because even if you make it there, that's Swizzy and Vanyak in the zone at the edge, ready to keep you out.
You can see the little arrows too, kind of looking back, just waiting for the right moment to strike. Which is why Hydro and his duo partner might want to take a bit more of a wider rotation, especially if they've already seen Swizzy and Vanyak, which I'm sure they have. You can see more on the east side. It looks a lot more free and safer, so they're going to decide to spend a bit more time in zone, but then have more of a safe entry into it. So nice little nitro found. Gonna continue rotating on through.
Well, I see Rift Island there in the distance, just outside of Shipwreck Shallows, which means I think the zone is going to continue to pull towards the south more times than not. That is a trajectory once Rift Island does appear. And so a lot of these teams that are currently positioned towards the north, you need to start thinking that and having it in the back of your mind. It's not 100% of the time, Takata, but a good majority of the time it does pull away from Rift Island. The team's already there, probably can stay positioned, use those rifts, use the launch pad. Everybody else has got to start thinking about the rotations. Getting information here is going to be vital. Even though there is nitro rings around, there's so many teams stacked up on that south side. If that's where you're trying to rotate, you are going to get caught.
Shipwreck Shallows is that new POI too that was just released. It has a little pirate ship on it with cannons and cannonballs that I believe you can even use in tournament formats. So, you know, you said launch pad rotations. Maybe one of these games we'll see someone kind of flying in the air like a cannonball. But it's going to be Nevs and Kidduel that have kind of made their little tiny surge base here. We've seen bigger ones.
This is 2022
throughout this tournament. Yeah, this is kind of a couple of years back. I'm not going to lie. But they've got more than enough damage, so no need to waste too many materials, especially with the odds being that they will have to rotate.
They performed well you know, throughout the qualifiers, but obviously they found themselves in the lower bracket side of things, but they took that opportunity in stride. You know, first place out of 9 games, they have 2 wins, 55 eliminations, so they've already proved they deserve to be here in the upper bracket side of things, but that is only half of the battle overall. Now you need to either get that win, relieve the stress on yourself for Sunday, or continue to remain as consistent, which we know is a little bit of a different format here in the finals.
If you're wondering why is Queasy not using his shields, his big pots, Thomas has big pots. Well, you have these cactuses that Queasy and Thomas are boxed around that after a period of time, they will kind of replenish and you can pickaxe them to recuperate more shield. So then Queasy does not want to use the big pots. He can just kind of take a bit more time to use that natural healing and then continue to look for tags. And if he gets tags again, well, he can just go back to the cactus and recuperate that HP once more. But it also means that a lot of the other players in the lobby are using a similar strategy. So the surge amount that you need to get is quite significantly higher than in previous seasons. Faded Pigeon, 47, and his duo partner, Edge of Zone. I wonder how they're going to rotate this.
I'm actually a little surprised that they're almost 400 above the damage threshold. So you got to think of that last fight when we did see H30 go down. All the damage must have been on Faded Pigeon to be able to get it. He gets his teammate back. So you can kind of see it was actually after the revive came in, just 66 above the damage threshold, continuously fires shots. Buzz is going to go down with an instant, separated a little bit too far from Clement, and that's exactly what happens. A second of separation, just an inch too big. A team will notice that and take advantage and try to isolate you just like that.
Ooh, Tijinio has to be careful though. Only 26 above. Has some players in the surrounding area, and look at that in an instant, Jacob. From 26 above to 236 below. Starts sweating in an instant. As you can see, the nitro sprints coming through. Looking to see what opportunities, what options he can find. It's Vidil and Reason on the other side of that door. Knock, knock. Can you connect that initial shot? Nitroing right into the box. I'm not sure if that was the best idea in this moment, as now his duo partner's left alone.
Yeah, I like the idea to get proactive. They have about 20 seconds at that time before Storm Surge activates. Makes it tougher and tougher. They fell so far below that damage threshold, so he felt like it was an all or nothing, but I'm not sure I agree with that one either. And you can see that V's making that decision. 221 below. I cannot stay here and expect to stay alive. I think only 3 players or so do need to go down, though, so he thinks that it might be better to come back for that reboot card now that Zone has pushed all these players away.
Yeah, 6 zone, 50 players being the threshold. There's a ways to go, which is why Scavia is so far below. I even saw CZB in the feed go down, one of our top competitors from yesterday's upper bracket. You can see how much Storm Surge can change these games. As Scavia is going to go right back to Reason and Vidil, but the 2v1, you can see 727, now 938 above the threshold, feeling more than comfortable.
Yeah, he's just looking for scraps that are left by. You can see he's just taking a lot of damage. Storm Surge even looked like he was trying to trade shots. There are cactuses around that area, but you got to imagine how many other teams are boxed up, and there's only so long you can find Storm Surge. He just needs one more player to go down to feel a little bit more safe here in this situation. But Storm Surge is going to be reactivating in this next zone, 50 seconds. So he still needs 10 more players from now to go down. He had a sigh of relief for mere seconds before he has to go at it again.
Crash pad getting made or put to good use here. You can see marking where they want to kind of base themselves up. Might even be right beside Thomas and Queasy here. Good pulls from them.
Nice healing right there. Almost looks like they're going to go back to back. They already have him weak. He tried to peek that shot. Great movement by Mappy there to not even take a shot back. Deal a good amount of damage. We talked about them on the pre-show. A team that I think we can expect big things. They have a high ceiling, a lot of potential. But in a lobby that's this stacked and is pulling in towards Shipwreck Shallows, over towards the right, it's not going to be hard because a lot of players were previously positioned here long ago for that Storm Surge around where Rift Island, so 3 zones ago.
Jacob, I have a vision. I have a vision. I want to become a reality. We have the potential of moving zones to pull right through that ship. How crazy would it be if someone makes a high ground play with the cannonball. But I don't want to speak too fast as Thomas HD and Queasy now have been put into extreme danger. Queasy's been knocked down. The focus is on them. All eyes are on them as Thomas HD is forced to use every last material he has to stay up. It's Merstash Malabuka. It's half the lobby taking shots from every single angle possible. And Thomas HD and Queasy, from looking so healthy and confident for this late game, are going to go down just in the 7th zone.
That's one of those things where you kind of take a picture and it's just like moments before disaster strikes. They were well above Surge. They've taken yesterday in stride. They've adapted. They've done so much better up until that point, but it's not enough to be up on Surge. Where you position yourself is so important because there was multiple teams that weren't up on Surge. Then you had Vidil and Reason also shooting off in that distance. And once you become the focus of a lobby, it is so hard to survive, especially with all your resources. So they're going to be down and out. 24 teams still alive, so barely just now placement points are going to start setting in for all these teams and begin to cascade with each and every one of those teams that go down.
A-Date above, forced to pop some minis here. As the zone keeps closing, the pressure is on from the duos that have already based up or even rotated earlier. Nitro Splash is going to come through for a bit of mobility here. Just inching their way into zone now. Have made a solid base and want to wait for this metal to fully build before I start making edits and peeking. These players that are rotating in, you do not want to let the focus get back onto you.
You got some mountain ranges to go over. Where this next zone pulls is going to be so drastic. It goes towards the right. I feel bad for the lobby, but it goes towards the south as Seti and Cammy's run here in game 1 has come to an end. Once again, just getting focused out of the lobby. 419 above, though, for Kiro and Mappy. Just like a few other teams in this lobby, all they got to worry about is positioning, getting from point A to point B. But as you've seen, it's not the easiest thing in the world, especially with so many teams all around. Another fight breaks out. Haijo, Kaido on the other side. Kiro, Mappy, defensively success. Take them back, push them back, and are able to stay alive here and get ready for that next rotation.
This is actually going to be a sickening rotation for a lot of these players, especially being on the water. Rakiro finds a nice little fishy. Unfortunately enough, Fast Strokey was able to get out. Good for him, though, as they're now going to pop another Nitro, continue moving on forwards as they're almost into the zone already. Might even play aggressive here as they know Fast Strokey's low. No more shields left on him. Just one more shot needed to connect, but the more time you take, the more risk of another duo joining the action.
See, he's going to get a decent amount of loot for that. Options for more med kits. They have a flopper as well, and they're just rotating towards the right side of the zone where it's barely opening up, so there's going to be very few people contesting them on that side of the map. So they almost got a free rotation for now, but as you look how messy the high ground actually is, different layers congested with multiple players, and we found one that is still below the damage threshold. They're consistently behind the curve, and they need to figure out a way to push themselves just a little bit further here.
97 below. This is the same duo that was 66 above just a moment ago. How quickly the tables can turn. 6 eliminations as well. 7 eliminations, and they are still below on Storm Surge. How is this even possible, Jacob?
I just got to imagine it's eliminations like that. It's weak players, slivers of HP trying to survive. It's great for your point total for the leaderboard, but it's not good for your damage. And now they're forced to go up and over everybody here on this next rotation, which turns out to be a disaster. He gets dropped, teammate left alone, very little resources, but at least he's able to take his teammates' builds and run with it.
Now left as a solo, trying to continue that elimination trend. They've already secured so many points just on elims, but they still need to get more damage. 4 Nitro Splashes in hand, and look in the clouds, look up above, it's Malabuka and Merstash building up.
We saw him come so close as a solo yesterday before everything came crashing down. Now they have that strength in numbers. Game number 1, it might be all it takes, but you still got some heavy hitters in the way, and one that you didn't expect, Lamine and Flobby on the high ground. It wasn't enough for them to go ahead and keep it. They gave it up, but it could come for a late game high ground retake because they took down high ground. They chopped it down. Timber, everything's gonna come falling.
We didn't have to wait long. The tree comes falling down, and Merstash Malabuka are back on top as they continue to apply pressure below. They cannot let these duos now on second height go for that retake just as they did. Good amount of materials, good amount of loot. Hopefully, they can hold on.
Yeah, they made that conscientious decision to disengage from the high ground. It's a decision that is going to pay off for them because they can no longer look up. The team that was there is now being contested by Pixie and Yanis on that middle layer. Vidil and Reason almost all the way down below. below, but luckily for them, they're keeping their feet out of the mud.
Continuing to tarp a bit above, trying to not get too low of a layer. I'm curious to see if they want to try and make a play here in the late game, but so far Medkit's gonna be popped, gonna heal back up. Pixie Yanis, 6 eliminations as well as they look for more.
Yeah, they're trying to get the piece control. Kiro's just hopping around, trying to stay alive, and he's gonna be able to survive just for now. Vico's going down, Cool gets 2. Vidil and Reason are trying to smoothly move through these builds. They have their eyes on the high ground. Malibuka and Mustache, you gotta watch out. We've seen so many late high ground retakes, and they do have the Flowberry Fizz, so another one is definitely possible.
This is why they were elevating themselves earlier. They want to see if they can make a play for that high ground, but Mustache and Malibuka, they're aware, but are they enough? As Art Skill now has been cracked down to 7 HP, going for the high ground retake, but can they successfully do it? They might have just done it, Jacob.
Yep, the distraction is in. Malibuka and Mustache have their hands full. And there goes another team. They still have their eyes on the prize. Even if it is 11 zone, they say it's never too late to make a play for it. And they continue to work their way up layer by layer, trading shots with Comeback, even who's up there. And finally, he comes crashing down. Reason and Vidil will not give up. They will not go down, and they will not be denied the high ground.
Reason, are you kidding me? Looking unstoppable, staying ahead of zone. Perfect moment to strike on that high ground retake. I believe it's just a solo above. They should be able to re-heal up here, use the Flowberry, and take the 2v1. It's actually going to be Porhawa who's on top of them. Malibuka as well, left as a solo. The battle for height has not yet finished.
Yeah, and Porhawa said, you know what, that's enough. Let's crash pad to the backside of zone. I think I have enough med kits. He's trusting in himself and his math skills to hopefully survive here. It is the 12th zone. As soon as this one goes all the way to edge, it will close, and whoever's left alive will have to battle out because it doesn't look like there's a lot of heals to go around this lobby.
One more tick in the Flowberry that they can use to avoid the fall damage here. Gonna get chopped down. The deal's still up, but Reason's been lost as he falls down. Vanyak as well dropped the 4 HP. The pressure's on him. Opponents tried to get into the box, but can he escape? No, he cannot.
He gets shut down at the last edge right there. Reason as well. Vidil's stuck by himself, but he has a little bit of elevation to separate himself from everybody else, and even one charge on the Flowberry Fizz. The drop down onto Yanis, and he gets a clear-cut win condition now that he has 2 medkits.
But down below, in the dirt, the low ground duo, 10 eliminations already. All they need to do is clean up Vidil.
Yeah, they're trying to chop him down, start the heal off early. Vidil comes crashing down. Even with the med kits, it's not enough. They steal away that game and advance to the grand finals.
What a way to close it out. We had our eyes on height, but what mattered in this last match was securing the low ground and being able to finish it off as a duo, and that is exactly what they were able to do.
And that's the moments that we're talking about. All that high ground is breaking down 3 teams, 4 teams, solos going up. They think that's the best way to win the game. But you see them down low, Hizix, Huzo, they are just going through. They're taking down every solo that's down there on the low ground, making sure they have materials, making sure that they have heals. Look at their eliminations. Everybody that dropped into their path was sent right back to the lobby. Meanwhile, high ground, they battled it out and they did the rest of the job for them.
Dandy, Hizzy were looking unstoppable down below. You can see both of them with 200 effective HP and shield. It wasn't even close when Vidil got chopped down. We also saw earlier on Porhawa. He was on height, but he said, nah, I'm going to crash pad into zone. I don't know how many medkits he had, but clearly not enough to finish off that late game.
Yeah, everybody's going for that high ground, but we got our first team to advance to the grand finals. We're going to go to a quick break so that way we can break all the action, but we'll see you guys on the other side.
and welcome back to FNCS. This is day 2 of our Major 3 semi-finals, and we kicked it off yet again with a lot of action on the high ground. Dandy Pizzo and Hizix were the cheeky champions at the end of the action, and they have booked themselves a spot in the grand finals next weekend. Although, Minimine, I have to say, I didn't have my eye on these two to take it, but they deserve the win.
Well, we didn't see them yesterday. They were in the lower bracket yesterday. They didn't perform amazingly well. They haven't had an amazing season overall. They didn't make a single round 4 in the qualifiers this season either, but they turned up when it mattered most. There was so much action, so much drama all the way up on high ground. This team on low ground just rode out their materials, found eliminations where they needed to, and just waited for everyone else to take each other out. 10 eliminations as well. They did a lot of their own work too. It can't be understated, but really good job from these guys.
Yeah, for a team that we haven't got the chance to watch much of this season, it was quite impressive the way they played low in towards the end of that game there. So good on them. Again, this is the nature of this format, right? You get teams that sort of sneak in there and they pick up a win maybe where you don't expect, and off to grand finals you go.
A team that was not sneaking around, though, was Reason and Vadil. They were determined, as soon as they found themselves on that low ground, to challenge for height. This was the game plan. They were going to stick to it, 11. And to be honest, they nearly pulled it off.
I mean, courageous, right? Because we saw how chaotic height could be at times yesterday, but they still made it a mission to get involved. And like you said, they started on low. They got a couple refreshes. They thought, okay, this is a win condition. We got some good mats. Let's play for height. And I thought they did it really well, Mini, for the most part, right? They were very patient. They kept looking for beams on Malibuka Mustache. While they were going for beams, sometimes another team would jump up and play height, but they stayed patient. They waited for the opportunity. And when it came, it still wasn't enough because height is just so chaotic right now, and they still had so many more people to deal with up there. So hopefully we can see more of that from Vadil and Reason as the game goes on, because eventually you got to think it'll pay off.
Yeah, I mean, that was their best game all weekend. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, their best game yesterday was a 17th. Now to start off today with a 2nd place. Looks like they're having a lot more enjoyment, a lot more fun in this lobby, even though they are double contested like we spoke about earlier on. They're a team that can pull something magical out of the hat as well. Even Janice and Pixie there up in 2nd place. They had a really strong game as well. Look at that, 9 eliminations. And it just seems to be like this is one of the teams that just snuck under the radar a little bit, trying to play for height here and there, but they just found eliminations after elimination.
Yeah, Pixie was really impressive in this game, right? Taking the lead, taking initiative, finding opportunities to sort of keep them pushing in the game. And even though, again, it didn't quite work out towards the end, Janice goes down and now he's solo clutching. It was really promising to see Pixie playing with so much initiative there. And again, if he can continue to lead like that in those end games and make plays happen, even if they don't win a game, they're going to be a team that come tomorrow, you expect them to just make it through on consistency.
11, this is going to sound like a silly question, apologies in advance, but are you expecting to see Janice and Pixie have such high elimination games?
Ooh, I mean, it's definitely in their locker, right? I think Pixie in particular has been a player that's shown in the past couple seasons that like he has a lot of firepower, right? So, you know, they're not the team that you expect to be out there getting a bunch more often than not, but definitely something they can do.
A lot of them.
It's a good look for them, right, Minnie?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I was going to say that a lot of the players that ended up moving to NA had Pixie on their radar as a potential teammate. You know, the likes of Pink, the likes of Taste, and they were all sort of taking a look at this player and saying, you know what, this could be a player that I could pick up here potentially as their best option on EU. Ultimately, they moved over to NA, but it's one of those where he's been on the come up for a little while now. And of course, Janice being such a prominent figure in the scene is a reason why he's picked him up, and it's a reason why we put them as one of our sleeping giants on our list yesterday.
And his ex-duo Flixie is playing a blinder with Vico. We were discussing it yesterday. This is a very aggressive duo, but it was really nice to see, actually, 11. Before we kicked off the pre-show, you were talking to Flixie. He was saying that actually Vico's collecting a lot of the mats, getting a lot of the refreshes, which I was quite surprised to hear.
I'd wonder why, because Vico is that guy. He's been doing everything this season. He's been one of those players that, like, individually, his level has just reached new heights. And I think the key thing for me, the key question for me is that, like, we've known Vico can play like this, right? When he bursts onto the scene, right? This is what he was known for, being super aggressive, being a great fighter, being someone that can be decisive in key moments. But it's about doing it in the most important moments, which is grand finals. And so, you know, last season in grand finals, his level wasn't quite this high. I want to see that now next weekend.
Now, lots of people that had Vico and Pink as one of their FNCS champion potentials for last season, but it didn't quite work out. So that's what I want to see as well. I want to see Vico doing his best when it's the time to do it. So on the big stage of grand finals.
I want to see all of our players doing their best, but you know what? Go, Vico, go. And we have got to go, actually, because it's time to head back to our casters as we head into game number 2. Levin, don't look so embarrassed, okay?
This is it. A great chance here for these teams to really pick up the pace. It's very, very similar to what we saw yesterday throughout the day. Early aggression, Storm Surge really dictating the pace of the game and how players get to play. And so if you don't reach one of them cactuses early, what would you think is a good plan B, Takata?
It's difficult, Jacob, because we saw, I believe, day 1, it was in 6 zone. You did like 470 damage or something like that. Next zone, 700 damage. So if you're not using those cactuses, you're going to be using a lot of minis, a lot of bigs, a lot of these heals that you're going to want to save for later. So if you're able to plan your kind of strategy and route beforehand, especially in the southern side of the map with all these cactuses, you should be pretty good. But if not, it's definitely going to be difficult.
Luckily for us, the game starts now. Let's jump right into it, Takata.
Game number 2. It is just 5 matches that will be played out today. No 6 matches like we're used to in grand finals format. So there's only a certain amount of opportunities to take home that VR and that qualification to the grand finals. Today also being the last day to do that, as tomorrow it's all about consistency, the deal and reason. In Sandy Steps, according to the drop map, there should be technically 3 duos dropping here, except for one of them. Yeah, you can see Kurama is a little north of Sandy. So not directly fighting right off the spawn, just like Malibuka and Murstache is up against Noah and Aqua. Who's taking it home this time around, Jacob? What's your predict?
Right now, I gotta go ahead and I'll say Malibuka and Murstache yet again. The floor back at the top, though, is gonna go to Aqua and Noah, so they have a little bit of advantage here early on in the gates, but I still think with the familiarity that Malibuka and Murstache have in and around this POI, they've landed here just a little bit longer and for just more times. I gotta think they have the best chances, but already they're pulling the NPC up the zip line. They don't even want to fight them for it. They just want to take it right away, and that way they have the upper hand throughout this entire exchange.
Malibuka knows this, though. They land here just as much as them. Unfortunately, Malibuka was just a millisecond late. And I believe, was that Aqua that connected that shot onto Malibuka's toes, basically? It might have been the NPC, but Malibuka now has been cracked. Murstache is going to be the only one with shield of the duo. But just like Noah Rayleigh, also does not have any shield.
For now. Just for now. You can see them passing on over the medallion like a hot potato, making sure that they're both healed up as much as possible. We talked about the importance of the cactus and replenishing and saving the shield so that way you can use them later. Kind of the same premise here with this medallion.
A lot more of a slower engagement this time around. Game 1, this fight ended quite quickly. But I'm not even sure if this fight is going to end. I mean, depending on how much time they take, they have to make the decision to just push each other or even just disengage and potentially find another team or continue with a separate loot path. But that's not really going to set yourself up for success in the late game. So we'll see how this one does end up playing out. But in the meantime, Gunbury and his duo partner, Emil, are they in a 2 versus 1 or is this a 2v2? I think it is a 2v2 actually, and Emil's gonna have to be careful here as he's been knocked down.
Yeah, I think it started off as they isolated one player of the duo, but everything turned sideways very, very quickly. T-Chips almost made something happen there, showing up just a little bit late, but unfortunately, that tardiness kind of led to a 2v1, even with Emil going down, another team rolling in, so you're not gonna be able to breathe here in that moment. As quickly Colbin over take him down. And now they get 2 teams worth of loot here.
Gunbury played it so well too. Annihilating both players, but you got to be aware of your surroundings. That's part of it. The homework you put in to know what duos are dropping around you and if there's that potential for a third party. And just like the duos that capitalized on that situation, if you see in the Elim feed that some of the duos dropping by you are fighting, then it's a good chance to kind of head on over there and stop your loot path to see if you can pick up a nice third party. Clips and Dexy looking quite scuffed, to be fair. I wonder what happened to their drop spot.
Yeah, especially since I thought it was uncontested towards the north, but they probably, like everybody else, are just trying to rotate as far south as fast as possible. Especially if the zone does pull there. But already you can kind of see the first zone a little bit telling, showing how much time they actually have. Dexy and Eclipse still wandering around because there's a lot of loot in and around the underworld. There's a lot of chests just kind of scattered around, floor spawns. There's a lot of shields. There's a lot of stuff that you can take advantage of. And I think that's exactly what they're doing, planning to get their surge just a little bit later in their game.
Speaking about surge, the day 1 average for 6th zone was 470 damage, and the previous match today, it was 649 damage that you needed. So almost 200 more damage. Seems like these duos have either been adapting to kind of the cactus surge meta, or it might have also been because the zone did pull south, meaning that a lot more players could capitalize on those cactuses versus if it pulls up north. It makes it a bit more difficult. So that could be why. You can just see how much effect they have on the lobbies, not only based on where the zone is, but we'll look at Chini Tap now, or Chini Tap, Chapatini.
I'm like, yes, it wasn't only me that mixed it. Okay, we got one over on Takata. But this is their same game plan. They land Nitrodrome. They maybe fight somebody if they get contested. Some shots along the way, but they beeline it straight on over here towards the forecast tower. I was talking about it yesterday. This one specifically on the map has an 80% spawn rate. So more often than not, if you play all 5 games out, it will spawn in 4 of the 5 games. So it kind of makes it a huge focal part of the game plan. As soon as they rotate here, they grab this mountain where there is the launch pad on top, and this is how they simultaneously get their surge for any of the duos wandering around, but this is also how they rotate out after they get the forecast tower.
The issue is they kind of always repeat the same strategy every single game, so you can imagine their opponents kind of are used to it at this point. So while they're rotating, they're going to know that Chapantini are on that mountain looking for tags, and they're going to be trying to cover themselves as much as possible. Yanis Pixie here now. Looks like Malabuka Merstash, as we were talking about earlier, decided to not continue their fight with Aqua Noah, but instead kind of look around in the surrounding area, see what else they can find, and they found another duo that looks like, I don't know if it was Pixie or his duo partner who they took out, but with 1 elimination, Pixie's still up. So Merstash Malabuka now kind of recuperating a bit of what they've lost from the early game.
Which isn't a bad position for Pixie because you look, they're literally right by their drop spot, so they know what loot they left behind. They also know if the zone pulls towards the north again, they can go back to this location, gather what they want here. So it's not necessarily the worst position for Pixie and eventually Yanis to be in on that side of the map. You see where everybody getting stacked up at. This is where a lot of those shots trade off, each and every one of the surge towers. You can't be scared to try to trade off these surge, especially if you have one of those cactuses right beneath you. If you're not taking these opportunities, you're going to consistently start to fall below that storm surge threshold. Even with Cammy taking a shot, he's really not scared, not really backing down from this opportunity.
Yeah, like you said, you can play a bit. That is true. The good news is, like you said, you can play overly aggressive and not really get penalized as much with those cactuses. So I'm curious to see how Cammy said he's going to do today, being uncontested. All the games that were won yesterday were by duos that were uncontested, but funny enough, the first game today was won by a duo that was contested, so maybe that's good news for Merstash and Malabuka. Only time will tell as Tarps and his duo partner might be put into a little sandwich here.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Vico and Flixie are one of the ones literally right nearby. Luckily for them, they're not going to follow up on that damage. They probably see that they're missing a huge chunk of HP. They can backtrack, especially if they do have some gold to use in that mending machine that is in Reckless Railway. So not necessarily the worst spot to be in for these guys as well, especially if they did have that early game surge. So they can go ahead and play a little bit more lackadaisy, flexible in their game plan, wait for a couple more of these zones to close in before they really start to pinpoint their spot.
Karama. Werix now. Up against it seems to be Chapantini. I'm not sure if they want to fully commit to this, though. Maybe it's some pop shots back and forth, but kind of being stuck in the mud here is going to make it difficult to disengage if that's what Kurama wants to end up doing here.
They got to be careful because even if they do disengage, there's another team waiting on the outside. And once you pop out those builds, if you peek out towards the west, that's when you're going to gain just a little bit more focus. And I think that's exactly what they've done. They're starting to focus on the other side. Bunker is now opening up, and you see the big focal point that everybody's fighting for. And with early damage, they heard the shields get cracked, but the same thing happening to Teeny. He just runs into a tough spot, 69 HP. Chap has just dropped even lower. They need to figure out a way to survive because now the third party has been turned into worse with one of them disengaging. Werix might go down, but for Karama, he has a chance to get the reboot card if it comes down to it.
So it's almost free pickings for the third party, though, with the amount of HP that both duos have been dropped down to. Luckily enough for Chap and Teeny, the disengagement is going to allow them to heal up, but also secure this bunker, which is going to be huge. I'm not sure. Did you see if the forecast tower spawned this match?
No, I did. They do have the forecast tower, and I did see yesterday, after yesterday's games, I think it was Teeny. He said, "Yo, we're still claiming our spot, and we're W keying the bunker." He's a man of his word already because he's already keying it, and he's won it so far, even without the eliminations. That's a good amount of loot to be won. As F9 takes down Finn over towards Grim Gates. A lot of other teams rotating in this direction as the solo trying to get out. It does look like another team is chasing him, trying to go ahead and take advantage of the fight that was started by a whole nother team. And it does look like they solidify that Elim.
Oh, Kentic.
It's just unfortunate.
Gonna go down. Yeah, unlucky. Malabuka, Elim onto Pixie. So it looks like Pixie was the solo that got away from them eventually. Didn't last too long, though, as he's been hunted down. Let's see how F9 got this elimination, though. Ooh. Little drop down, quick shot.
Nice low Elim, really catching him off guard. That's where it's going to end for just a quick moment. Deal and Reason. You kind of see them peeking up. Very, very similar rotation. There is a launch pad nearby that they can use to rotate, but it does look like they're kind of in the center of zone. No real reason to rotate. They can try to gatekeep it out if any teams are trying to use it as well. So as long as they're not really forced into any altercations due to Storm Surge, I really do like the position they're at. But you kind of see the other side of that coin with Fraz, Stroky, and Robon, to where they're kind of forced to move down here, nor the Cactus. They are already taking some shots, so they are weak with an earlier fight, or at least trading shots from Surge, so they need to kind of stagger themselves just a little bit to make sure they get that shields up before they rotate out, if they rotate out.
Now this is a Surge base, Jacob. Look, we've seen the 2022 Surge bases. This is 2024. This is an up-to-date, cutting-edge Surge base, Cactus included, by the Nitro drone.
Do you know why, though? Do you know why we had to upgrade for 2024? It's because of the crash pads. In case you guys are wondering at home why the crash pad or the Surge bases have evolved for so much, first you could thank Trulex and Chicho. They're the ones who kind of started it. And then from there, with the crash pads, people were tired of getting crash padded on with the Flowberry Fizz, so now you need a roof in your Surge base. You needed at least 2-bedroom apartment Surge base at the top now. That's why they extended so high. It's at least 2,000 V-Bucks per game to rent that.
I was looking on socials, though. All it takes is a couple cannonball shots from the new POI, and that Surge base can come crashing down. Haven't seen that happen yet, though. Cammy and Seti. Look, I'd like to see this duo take home a match. 5 out of the 6 games in the upper bracket have been won by returning duos. We know Cammy and Seti, obviously a returning duo, have been competing together. I'm trying to think who's competed together longer than Cammy and Seti. Ooh, nice little 58 shot. So if any duo has chemistry, it's going to be them.
That's actually a good question. And anybody in the chat knows of any EU duo that's been together longer than Seti and Cammy? I'm going to be looking at the chat so we can figure out if anybody knows their stuff. And you can see there's a lot of space at this portion of the map that is kind of filled out because everybody has their Surge towers. Nobody's really boxed together other than that northeast side of the map, but they're just trying to rotate. You see them kind of boosting through. You know they have the power of the Nitro. And so here at this stage of the game, nobody really wants to make those big moves, those big risks, unless they have to, which is going to happen in that next zone when Storage Surge inevitably comes on.
Most scarce resource in Fortnite, always been metal. I remember when I was competing, always had kind of like on our rotates and our mid-game rotate strategies, we'd have kind of the locations where you could farm up that metal quickly. It's always so difficult to find, and you don't want to waste a lot of time kind of pickaxing things that give you 1 or 2 metal. You want to find things that give you more 4 or 5, even 6 metal to pickaxe. 155 above. Good news is they are on the River of Styx, so if they dip their toes into that water, they will get 3 dashes that they can use. Taking a look at Noah and Aqua, though. They were up against Malabuka and Murstache in the early game. Both duos decided to disengage and take their own battles. Noah, Aqua, no eliminations, but they have done enough damage.
Yeah, them being able to get that medallion out of Redline Rig, I think has bolstered their game plan overall. They can combine that with the cactuses to make sure to stay above that Storm Surge threshold. And we saw where Rift Island was. It was kind of on the northeast part of where the zone's at, so we know a good chance that the zone is going to pull over here towards Sandy Steps, or at least continue to move towards the south. But Fadil's already down. Reason now stuck by himself, and they're in the center of the zone, so getting a reboot is going to be tough if he does at least try to make it happen. He has to hope that the zone pulls all the way towards the north, so everybody on the south side of the map leaves this area.
Reason Fadil currently in 2nd place, not including the Game 1 winners in terms of the leaderboard, just 8 points behind Yanis and Pixie. So with having Fadil gone down so early could be detrimental to Reason, but you know, Levin talked about it. If any duo is going to be able to make a comeback and get a shambles, Reason and Fadil have good odds of doing so. Issue is, I don't think Reason is going to have enough time to bring Fadil back in. He might have to just play it out as a solo at this point in the match. 14 builds as well, no shields. Maybe I'm a little too hopeful, but anything can happen.
And the zone gave him a chance. The zone gave him a chance. He's right on the edge. Everybody's going to have to move towards the west if they want to get that safe spot. And it is relatively early on in the game. Maybe 1-2 ticks from the zone, 3 med kits. So I would actually be more surprised if we don't see Video back in this game. As Queasy would jump on board, Thomas already gone. Another stressful situation for him to be in. 22 HP and continuously dropping now that they're fighting deep into the zone. He does have the med kits, but no time to pop them. The dashes go in. Go ahead and takes him out. He wins that battle, but I'm not sure he's won the whole thing just yet. Still 21 below the damage threshold. Queasy was already weak, so he didn't really get much damage counted towards the Storm Surge due to that elimination.
Crazy gonna be going straight to socials after that one. I would as well. We'll see what For9 and Della are gonna be able to do though. 1 Elam on the board already. It looks like they want to get a bit aggressive. There are some players close by.
89 above. Remember, they started off with elimination today, which wasn't a lot for Surge. Trading gets overzealous. Reason's going to take one down. A chance for him to fight back. They're trying to drop him into the box, and Della's going to take him down. And that's a good amount of loot. That was just one. He's just getting tagged. We saw this location yesterday. There's so many half-broken built walls that you can't build to protect yourself. So it's hard to try to survive, but it's good to see that they do have a second chance with the revive now secured.
Just 2 HP. That was a close one, but they got the job done. That's what matters. 68 players up now. We can hear that little sound. That's the Storm Surge sound, meaning that these players are going to have to get aggressive. They haven't done enough damage. It's 6 zone. Day 1 average was 470 damage needed. Game 1 today, the last match, you needed 649 damage dealt during this zone. So
it's a full elim.
That's a couple elims. That's a couple. That's a few elims there.
That's a full 200 HP elim. But yeah, no, the way this game has been going, we saw a guy with 7 elims in the game yesterday, 51 below the damage threshold. You know, the opportunity to get that full amount of damage, especially later in the game, isn't necessarily going to be there. That's why I always say you got to be proactive as early as you possibly can, so you could dictate as much of the game as you can. And that way, when Storm Surge hits, you still have that flexibility, the adaptability, so you can kind of make the choices that you want to make, just like Axe Force and Clownski here.
Almost 600 above. That must be a lot of weight off their shoulders. Looking at the duos still up. Murstache, Malabuka looking healthy. But while some duos are healthy, others are put into tight situations here. As Kovacs gonna use a nice little crash pad rotate. Should be able to make it into the edge of zone quite safely, but I might have spoken too soon as everybody else had a similar idea. Now forced to kind of take a step back, refocus up, and then rotate back in.
Yeah, it's unfortunate they didn't have the Flowberry Fizz to combine with that crash pad. They definitely would have made it in zone, because now if you look at the edge of the map, everybody is stacked up. They're going to have to use a lot of resources to make it there, especially with players targeting and focusing that direction, making it harder and harder for any survival possibility. Same as Cringe. He's backside of zone, though, so it's a much tougher situation for him as he finally goes down. Stormy's going to get credit for that knock, and they quickly try to move in towards where they got that knock to try to clean up as much of that loot as possible. Their loadout looks okay at best, so you can see why they're trying to jump to try to grab that loot.
I didn't quite see where the zone did end up pulling. Oof, okay, that is tough. Far west, southwest zone. A lot of these players gonna have to rotate together on this congested side, but players like Volko aren't even gonna be thinking about the rotation. Not too much HP or shield to work with. A whole duo pushing you. Now forced to play defensive. Kind of hold off until that storm starts closing.
Tarps and Oi are down on Surge. This is what I was talking about. You really don't have too much of a choice to kind of play your game out. They're going to go ahead and make this rotation quick. Hopefully they can look towards the backside of the zone, and that's where they're going to get their damage. But you can see the number of players that need that Storm Surge damage is going to continue to increase. Now Balabuk and Mustache have to watch out, because Volko has now started to target them out, but with still more of a rotation to go. He's just making sure to focus on that first, get as far as he can before he looks back.
That was a great rotation. I don't think he's landed in zone yet, though. Still has more of a way to go, but the shots are coming through. He's going to use so many materials here just to make it in. 200 wood is all that's left. 55 below as well. He needs to do a bit of damage. It's all or nothing here. Going to get into the box. Do they know? Yes, they do. It's a 2v1, but Volko cannot miss a single shot, unfortunately. He is going to go down.
Yeah. See how that fight actually started. I thought it was Stormy's duo that actually got the elimination. It was Vico and Flixie, and you can see why they didn't have the awareness to actually gather that loot. That was the perfect opportunity to get it. They got more mats, resources, able to climb up higher on that mountain, put themselves in a whole different spot, and that's where you see a simple decision, a small choice left instead of right, and how it impacts your game.
Zone pulled northeast. You can see the only duo basically that wasn't on the congested side, I think, was Cammy and Seti there. A little closer to the middle side of the zone. They should get a lot of opportunities to take shots on these players rotating. Flixie, Vico, kind of planning out their rotation. The issue here is, depending on where you go, you're either going to land onto 20 other duos, or you're going to go very early and have all the duos land on top of you, or you can go late and try and get a bit more elevated, but then have the potential of the duos to look back and take shots at you.
I almost think it might be worth to go late, because if you see at the far right of where the zone is going to be, there's that mountain range that we just saw on the overhead map. If you time it perfectly, use the crash pad with the Flowberry Fizz, that is instant high ground, because not only does it go up towards that spot, you see there's just a whole river, a lot of water underneath that mountain, where a lot of duos will have to find some comfortability whether they like it or not.
Skavi, not a solid loadout, but a good position to hold off. Just one refresh could be all that they need. That impact frag to put them back in the game, as Vanyak's going to take out Vidil in the feed. Players now making their way towards zone with just 10 seconds left until the next one appears. If it pulls towards this hill, Jacob, that is going to be dangerous for a lot of these duos down below.
Yeah, hopefully they punch their ticket, because that's going to be a roller coaster of emotions. As you see Chap, Teeny, they already have 6 eliminations. Well, there's 7. Let's keep counting. Let's go up to 8 eliminations.
Crew.
Storm Surge not a worry for them. And there goes Vico and Flixie. They waited. They timed it perfectly. They got the mountaintop that I was talking about. But now it pulls off. It pulls a little bit off that mountain. So once again, if they delay and time this one perfectly, they can maintain their position above everybody else with not expending a lot of materials on the way there.
This is actually huge for Vico and Flixie. Like you said, they're not even going to have to use too many mats to hold on to this position. They can take shots at all the duos flying through the air now. All they have to do is capitalize on this position to close it out. Make sure that those duos on second height and close to them know that they're looking down below and they are healthy. As even with 390 damage above the threshold, they do not have to worry much at all.
Yeah, the only big worry for them is exactly what you're talking about. Any duo that looks to contest them through the outside of the zone. Plus, if it goes down this mountain, it's going to be harder to connect to some other teams. Malibu and Mustache this time around without their mythic loot. They seem to be making and performing much better without that pressure. 300 above the damage threshold. The crash pad instantly gets shot out. One of the worries that you have to wonder about, but Malibu makes it. They reunite on the other side, and this is where I feel like champions are made. Moments like this.
Mappy, Kiro looking to see if they can connect some shots as well, but up above, the pressure is still being applied by Flixie and his duo partner. Vanyak now Swizzy looking healthy. A lot of solid top tier duos still looking like they have a shot at it in this match.
Which I thought was going to be a blessing, but with so many of them still alive, it might be a curse. You can see he's just trying to go through unnoticed, floating through the side of the mountain. One team gets above him. That's Mappy and Kiro, and they choose not to fight him, or at least not just yet. We'll save that on the list for later. They continue to look for opportunity after opportunity. Chap and Teeny find 2 more. They are now in double-digit eliminations. They have nothing else to do in this game other than win.
Cammy said he knocked out of the match 10 elims as Vanyak Swizzy now. We saw them looking for it, and they've done it, claiming height once again, but you got to be careful. The battle is not over as Nebs looking to see if he can get out of this situation. Vanyak Swizzy now, all they got to do is hold on.
Yeah, he had to leave Kaduo by himself. He's just trying to survive in the back of zone. He was getting attacked. Down goes Swizzy, but only for so long. He has the Nitro Splash to protect himself, and they have the position as well, but Vico, Flixie, they're waiting as well. So many opportunities, and we've seen it throughout the day yesterday as team after team after team gets the high ground. 2 of them get dropped down. Champ and Teeny go all the way down low to the low ground. Hopefully they don't get stuck in the mud because they're acting quick to try to take it once more.
Looking like a Zone Wars match. There's 3 duos that want this high ground, but so far, Chapatini, they thought they had it, but it's Flixie. It's his duo back at it again, and Fico up above. 3 eliminations, looking to get 4. Can they hold on, though? Chapatini still just 1 layer down.
Yeah, they have to be careful. They have to be very, very careful, because this is where the low ground teams, we saw it in that last game, they get elim after elim, tearing apart those solos. They get all the materials, so when high ground fully comes down, they are in the driver's seat. And there goes Chapatini trying to do it again just because they got denied twice. 3rd time might be the charm. And Vico, Flixie, they finally go down to a layer to where it's easy to fight them, easy to contest, especially since they're out of builds.
They're not done yet, though. Vico's lost his duo partner. Flixie's down, but Vico, can he pop off? Can he make it happen? Teeny is cracked. Just 1 shotgun shot needed to connect, but he has no match. Teeny is going to be the one connecting the shots up to 4. Crash pad used. It's Axe Force. It's Clownski, but Axe Force goes down. Teeny goes down as well. Who is still alive?
It's almost looking like a 1v1. We got a couple knock players in this game. Clownski, it's actually a 2v1 with Kiro Mappy out of nowhere. They were one of the teams that challenged for that high ground. They made that decision to disengage, give it up, say, hey, we will take it later, and we will take it by force. And now with a 2v1, they have it all but secured. Clownski trying to go up and over, land the shots, but it's just not enough. Kiro and Mappy had the recipe for success, and they cooked a good one.
Pure chaos unfolding in the last moments of the match. There was multiple duos playing for high ground, but once again, just like we saw in the first match of the day, that last duo that played it patiently, Mappy, Kiro, come out in the last moment. They have the player advantage in the 2v1, and all they had to do was be the cleanup crew, couple shotgun shots, and they booked their ticket to the grand finals.
Yeah, just even a little heal, crash pad, just in case he jumped out. That crash pad from Mappy actually forced him out of the box into the air. Easy targets for them. These guys have now just qualified to the grand finals, joining 7 other teams so far.
But we're not done yet. There's still 3 matches to be played out. So we're going to head to a quick break, and then we'll be back for a lot more action. See you soon.
Hello, welcome back to the FNCS Major 3 semi-finals. We are 2 games in, but I feel like we've seen so much action so far, and our second victory royale, and therefore our golden tickets to the grand finals were just taken by Kiro and Mappy. And these guys, don't forget, were competing in the lower bracket yesterday, so what a return to form, Levin.
Absolutely, W's in the trap for Kiro and Mappy, man. These guys have been on a journey, like we highlighted at the start of the show, where it's been a bit up and down. They got together, honeymoon period between them was unbelievable. It's like they couldn't stop winning, sorry, definitely not losing. It sort of was a gradual decline from that point onwards towards the back end of last season. But this is the perfect sort of revival, the perfect sort of boost, right? Coming in from lower bracket, going straight to grand finals in game 2. Great result for them.
Yeah, and I was looking at that game right there. It seemed like for so long during that end game, they were just poised to take height. They were looking up, they were trying to pop their fizz and then do a crash pad. But there was a significant moment there, you might have seen it in that highlights, where they decided to look up and they thought, you know what, actually, we're going to go back down. They used their flurry of fizz to go down to that low ground, play out their materials. They had the med kits as well, which they actually both played together at the backside of the zone there inside the storm. Just gave them a free run into the VR there at the end. Really nicely played from these guys. And it's just kind of showing maybe just full psychoing height isn't necessarily the best play. It seems like the teams that are playing it on low, so just riding out the low ground and riding out the materials, are the ones finding the most success right now.
I mean, you know, as well, the one key factor for them there is like they had double DMR in that end game. You know, when you're playing double DMR like that, going for height in that kind of manner is never going to be the easiest for you anyway. And to win the game playing double DMR towards the end there is also very impressive stuff.
I was about to ask, we've seen so much challenge for high ground so far this weekend, but what seems to happen is that the most successful team, they often have to settle for second or even third, because one of these sneaky duos who have been, as you say, double DMRing it or just kind of biding their time on the low ground, does manage to take it in the end. Levin, do you think that we're going to see more success from duos who play it this way?
I mean, you could probably say yes, just because of how crazy height is right now. Like, you can play height almost perfectly and not be rewarded for it, just because, again, there's just so many teams going up there. You know, the big 3 of this season, I'd say, have been sort of Vico, Flixi, Swizzy, Vanyak, Chapentini, and all 3 of them were battling it out for height towards the end there. And it was spectacular to watch, right? Because you're thinking, who's going to come out on top? At one point, Chapentini looked like they really had the edge. But again, it's like even after they end up having their battle, more teams get involved. It's like you almost can't win if you're going up for height super late.
Yeah, and I really like the way that Chapentini actually ended up playing this. They kind of waited for Swizzy and Vanya to actually drop down, and then they let them go in front of them and then take height off of them. But as you said, Levin, it just seems like going for height, usually, yes, very good play, very good idea. You want to be above the rest of the lobby. But the problem for these teams that are going for height, everyone else wants to go for it too. There's so many problems that are being caused by that. And it was, of course, Teeny that ended up taking out Axe Force, which won Mappy and Kiro the game. So I think it's just a difficult situation for anyone that's trying to go for height right now. But this is the kind of time when you need to go for height. Wins are what matter. 3 games left on the day. This is where height is actually coming into play. So lots of decisions to be made for these teams.
And actually, if you look at the standings, so look at Vico and Flixi, Swizzy, Vanyak, Chap and Teeny, they're all really comfortably within the top 10 standings now. It doesn't matter that they haven't got a victory royale because they're securing their place in the upper bracket for tomorrow. And probably they're going to be good for the grand finals. I can't imagine these guys not making it. And when you get to the grand finals, you know, you don't win a victory royale and automatically win the Axe of Champions, Levin. You know, you need that consistency and you need that firepower and aggression that we're seeing from these teams as they try and take high ground.
I mean, you just cooked up a crazy good format, man. Let's see that. Let's just have an FNCS grands where game 1, whoever wins, that's it. You're in the championship.
1 game.
Yeah, 1 game. Go on.
You clock off early, Levin.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind. I mean, nah. On a serious level, I think we're seeing, you know, continued that sort of aggression, right? Because, you know, Minnie's right in that, like, when people in a format like this where the win's the most important thing, like you want to play for height naturally, that's how it's always been across formats like these. But the combination of the Crash Pads Juniors with the Fizz this season just make it so much more difficult to secure it once you have it.
Well, Vico and Flixie, they did naturally take height at the start of that end game when they bided their time on the mountain. They risked it, and it really paid off for the mini miner.
Yeah, I thought they set up really nicely here. Of course, they land next to the forecast tower, using that to their advantage to know where that zone's going to pull so they can get in that favorable position. But again, they just fell victim to what seems to be the problem for high ground teams this season in this current meta, is that they just can't hold on to it for long enough. And unfortunately, no matter how early you set yourself up, no matter how many materials you seem to be able to have, no matter how much pressure you can apply to that second height team, there's always going to be a team that's going to sneak up there some way or another. So I think for these guys right now, maybe it's time to stop looking at height. Maybe it's time to play those mid to low grounds, because both of these players are very frag heavy. They know how to fight in these layers. So I don't think it's out of the question for these guys to not go for height.
I mean, the problem as well that they're facing is like they might get a refresh on height, but then like you just end up build fighting and wasting all the mats trying to like hold on to it, right? Whereas like, again, a team of Vico and Flixie's quality, they could just frag out on mid and low and then like be a lot more stacked to come that top 3 situation and win.
So in other words, maybe they should actually be playing the same game that the duos that we've seen take victory royales so far today have been playing. You know, just be dependable, fight on that mid to low ground, bide your time, let everything take place above you, and then just take that victory royale, steal it in the final moments, mini miner.
Yeah, I think it's funny because if everyone does that, then one team's going to ride it out on height and win the game. So it's like, if everyone ends up playing mid to low, there's going to be one person that's going to succeed from that. And I think everyone's trying their luck every single time to be that one team while everyone else plays low. I don't think anything will change, I'm going to be honest. I think people still want to try and play for height. They want to try and almost claim it for grand finals as well. So I think there's going to be a lot more height action on the way.
I love a bit of height action, so I'm happy to hear that, mini miner. Let's head back to Jacob, PR, and to Carter to get game number 3 on the way.
Thanks, Frankie. I'm also all about height action, but what's interesting to me is that both matches today have been won by duos that came from the lower bracket. As a reminder, top 30 of the lower bracket yesterday qualified to today's upper bracket, just like the format is going to be played out today, where the top 30 from the lower bracket today will play in tomorrow's upper bracket, and the top 20 from today in the upper bracket will move on to the upper bracket tomorrow. The battle bus is ready. Let's get right into the third match of the day.
Time is quickly running out, and so are those auto qualifications to the grand finals by winning a game. I want to say this is going to be the easiest way to get into the grand finals, but from what we've seen so far, the battles that are going on the high ground, the destruction that happens down below, it looks far from easy.
Once again, the battle in red line rig, Murstache Malabuka up against Aqua and Noah. Game 1, this engagement ended quite quickly, but in the most previous or the most recent match, they actually didn't even end up fighting each other. They took some shots in the early game, but kind of both went their own ways further on. So we'll see if there's a repeat of that or not. Meanwhile, Clement and his duo partner, they want some action.
Yeah, they didn't necessarily fight it out early in that last game, but maybe a different drop right off of the spawn. 1v2 opportunity. Thinks he has the upper hand. Pistols a couple shots in there. And he gets both of those eliminations with the pistol, essentially, in the Thunderburst.
What a good way to start off the match. 2 quick eliminations to continue forwards. But we saw that's not going to be enough, Jacob. We've had players with 7 eliminations before still be below the Storm Surge threshold. So the job's not done. They're just getting started.
Oh, that's tough. You really don't have any builds to hold the wall. Your teammate's already trying to heal. That was actually played picture perfect for him to get not one, but both of those eliminations. Snazy and Podesai uncontested yesterday, running into numerous opponents here over towards Mount Olympus. They're trying to use the zip line to advantage to break through those builds, but he just took too many shots repeatedly from both Snazy and Podesai. I like the effort for thinking outside of the box, trying to innovate there, but just didn't work out for them.
Mount Olympus, if I'm not mistaken, was going to have 3 duos contesting each other. I'm not sure if that trend's going to continue throughout the whole day, but Snazy and Podesai was one of the duos that was going to be dropping there. Flixie Vico, we saw their domination on the high ground in the last game, but it was alongside multiple duos that just wanted a piece of that high ground. Mini was saying, we're not going to have any changers, although there was so many duos contesting height in these recent matches. He thinks it's going to stay the same. I think that's true. I mean, we've seen how powerful it can be, but when you have so many duos going for it, I mean, the past 2 games have been won by that duo on low ground that decided to take it a bit slow, so I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah, a little bit of a different approach overall, and that's kind of the mix-ups that you're seeing for Vico and Flixie. I wouldn't necessarily be too worried, because if this trend continues, even if they don't win a game today, you got to think they're a lock-in through consistency tomorrow. It's 2 different opportunities, uppers and lowers, to make that happen. And Malibuca Mustache back on over towards Redline Rig. You see a third team slowly but surely moving up in the distance, and that team knows this is contested. They also know that the medallion has not been grabbed yet. You still see it there on the mini-map, so they're just gathering some intel, information. What they do with that information might be a whole different story. It's all about how confident they feel.
Yeah, do they know that both duos, Noah and Aqua and Malibuca Mustache, are still incredibly healthy? They might be thinking,
Hey,
could be a little scuffed, but as you can tell, Noah taking some shots that connected, but also being on the receiving end with just 9 HP. What a headshot from his opponent. Malibuca gonna use this to capitalize on the situation, playing aggressive now. All it's gonna take is a solid push, but Mustache, what's gone wrong? He's been knocked down. Malibuca with a quick trade. It's a 1 versus 1.
hey, this is a winnable
Noah
fight.
versus Malibuca. It's doable, but the issue is the third party, it's gonna come through.
Yeah. Even though they did take some damage, they're slowly but surely moving in. The 2v1 is going to be secured. But now he has to worry about getting Mustache back. And with all that fighting going down, you'd think Haijo and Kaido might move into this location, especially if they see the names in the feed, and that's exactly what they're going to do. Instantly are trying to close the distance. This could be a very disastrous situation for Malibuca to be in. That's why you see him quickly trying to disengage, but he gets cut off on the other side. They're trying to go and cement him in, sandwich him, and just take out every opportunity for him to try to escape. And I think this is where it might come to an end, because it's almost due or go down. He tries to get the crash pad out, and they get shot out as well, so they're not going to be able to follow as close.
I don't think they even know where Malibuca is. Look, Haijo's looking at the wrong direction here. Has Malibuca done it? Not missing a single edit, crash padding himself out to safety. Look at the mini-map though, Jacob. There's another duo that wants to be invited to the party, as Malibuca is now making his great escape. 2 eliminations on the board from Aqua and Noah. He got the reboot card, I believe, so all he really has to do now is play it slow. He even has 2 med kits. You can see bandages in the surrounding area, so more than enough time to play zone here and recuperate the HP that he's already lost. It's going to be a slow early game, but it's definitely doable.
Yeah, you add in the fact that it was Haijo and Kaido that moved over from where he's going to now. So in theory, there's no team there. And the 2 that might rotate in that direction, Yanis, Pixie, Cool, Voltiax, they're both uncontested. So they're probably looting up their drop spot. Maybe if they hear the reboot, they'll begin to kind of maneuver over in that direction. But only time will tell. Vaniac and Swizzy trying to get out of that southern side of the map just a little bit earlier than we've seen in games past. They're adapting as each and every one of these games go on.
Switch on over to Podoscience and AZ. Pop shots back and forth is what I'm seeing here. A lot of duos in the surrounding area of Mount Olympus, so you don't want to play too aggressive. Even a disengagement coming through.
Yeah, with 2 elims so far. I can't imagine it's a massive amount of surge due to it being an early game fight, but it's definitely enough to give them the confidence to kind of loot up, be more flexible in this early game. Kiddo and Nems first from the lower bracket. Destructive powerhouse showing off his prowess yet again, taking down both Nate and Slove. And that's Nebs that's going to get the other one.
Quite a lot of aggressive starts to this match compared to previous ones. I wonder what is causing that exactly. Thomas and Queasy too have not been having the best day so far. Getting eliminated a lot right before the end game begins. Seen Queasy playing solo, Thomas playing solo. Folk has been on them. Hopefully this time around, RNG can be a bit more on their side.
We see how quick, we were talking about it throughout the day, how quickly they rotate out of classy courts to try to get in a position to the south side of the map, so they can go ahead and try to grab some sort of a cactus position for one of those surge bases. And luckily for them, it's a rotation that's going to work out for them tenfold, because now the zone is moving towards the south this game. So not only do they get the surge, the position that they want, they're going to be ready for the next couple of zones.
I'm wondering where Zone is going to end up pulling. Like we saw the effect, especially on this season. When Zone pulls south, the amount of damage you have to do is significantly higher to if it pulls north. So these duos that are capitalizing on the cactuses earlier on in the match before the Zone continues to pull further from them will have the advantage in terms of how much damage they're able to do.
Yeah, the Zone moving over in this direction. The 2 Elims with the surge that they got in the early game. They're just making sure to farm up. I think you mentioned it earlier, some of these walls, the amount of material they actually get for them, 9, 11, 13. So it is going to take them quite a long time to find a farm up. But even then, there's not a lot of metal. There's not a lot of wood in this direction either. So as soon as they kind of feel confident enough with the amount of brick and the material that they have, they will try to move over and grab the next. But Firen's there. His teammates just a little bit too far away, but they just basically know that we have eyes on you. We know you're there, and every move that you make is going to come with a little bit of risk.
Red Edge and Radion. Brutal beachhead. Uncontested drop spots have been quite beneficial throughout this weekend. I mean, every single match in these upper brackets, except for one, has been won by a returning duo that has been uncontested. We talked about it earlier as well. Cammy and Seti. The duo that's played the longest time together. Basically the most tournaments as a duo. I was thinking about other names, maybe like King Phaser. I don't know, on NA. But here we have Volko and Cringe in an intense box fight.
Yeah, and I like that Volko not getting greedy after firing the first shot. Holds the wall. Making sure to play safe. Not getting a little too overzealous, biting off more than you could chew in any one of these moments, and making sure that they own all the space. They do have the cactus that is in this location, pushing Dirty, Heine off of it. So even if they do continue this fight, Volko and Cringe will have the luxury to be able to trade shots and not have to use the resources in their inventory if they do need to heal up.
Look behind them as well for Nine and Della in their surge base with clear vision onto these opponents in the box fight.
Zone continues to move towards south. Kind of make a guess when I see Rift Island, but I do think we might have a sandy steps, brutal beachhead, maybe in a red line ridge style zone. As Volko and Cringe continue to target out their opponents. They know they're weak. They're the ones who started this fight. There is a nitro ring there, so they got to be careful for that team to disengage if they choose to follow. They at least got to have that decision in the back of their minds. And I do think they do. It's probably not worth the chase here, at least not just yet, knowing they got to rotate in a couple seconds anyway.
Looking at Swizzy, Vaniac, and Camiseti. Vaniac's been fully cracked. I assume he has a cactus, though, so... This is deja vu from last match. Same exact position. They can overpeak, like we've mentioned previously, and just heal up with those cactuses, so... Trying to do as much damage as possible here. Just kind of take shots, receive shots. Take shots, receive shots, heal up. Nathan and CZB, though. One of the most... popular duos in day one, second place on the leaderboard, not including the players that secured a victory royale. But today, I haven't seen as much from them. I believe CZB and Nathan are currently on the bottom half of the leaderboard today. 0 points after 2 matches. So hopefully they're going to be able to get a victory royale, because if they don't even get top 25, they won't make upper bracket tomorrow. They'll be stuck in lowers with just 3 matches as their only opportunity to make grand finals.
It's almost like opposites, Vico and Flixie and CZB and Nathan. CZB and Nathan, as the day started yesterday, they were performing actually pretty well. 3rd place, 4th place, a 9th place after, but those next 2 games, they slowly but surely kind of fell down. On the other side, 23rd, 15th, and then they started to pop off with the 6th, 9th, and 12th for Vico and Flixie. So if they can continue the momentum of where they ended in day 1, how they started here in day 2, I could definitely see them punching their ticket to the grand finals here today. But it's also another team you can't be too worried about, especially with how consistent they're playing.
Take a look at this. Malibuca's done it. Murstache did go down in the early game engagement, and somehow Malibuca escaped the pursuit of Haijo and Kaido, so now they're back in business. Ooh. 200 effective HP and shield. Rift Island in sight, very close to them. Let's see how this one plays out.
It's over towards Brawlers, so should go towards the west side somewhere, whether it's south or north of that west side. We'll find out in the next couple of zones. You see how important it is for teams as they quickly go up towards that Rift Island. It doesn't give you points anymore, but you get a good amount of loot. You get Flowberry Fizz, you get that mythic hand cannon, which we've already seen since its inception that it can deal and pack a punch. Some players even opting not to take any sort of AR or scoped weapon because they deal so much damage, especially if you're one of those players that can hit shot after shot with it.
Making use of the materials on Rift Island. Always want to be doing something in these matches, whether it be farming, looking for tags, looting up, anything you possibly can. Chapentini. Once again, we know that they like to play for that forecast tower. Now, though, staying a bit further back in zone and seeing if they can continue getting tags. But 645, I wonder if there's any duos kind of semi-holding them or not. They do have the launch pad, so I guess they're trying to figure out if it's worth it or not with the amount of duos that know that they're going to try and launch pad. But take a look at this. Malibu Commerce Dash. Right back in action.
Yeah, they already got a knock on one. This is how you have a pick-me-up performance after what happened in the early game. They're 561 above the damage threshold. And they snatch away that body trying to get the loot. They continue to inch forward. They get the information where that player's at, but I know them. They're not going to get too greedy here in this situation. Fall back for the loot, reassess the situation before they continue to push forward in this game. And they have multiple options here. They have the nitro rings all around, the rifts below the island, and if they're feeling daring enough, which you know they're one of the teams that will go up towards Rift Island eventually, they can use the launch pads up above.
See a quick replay of how Malibuco was able to close out this fight quickly. Nice couple shots connecting, just enough to take out his opponent. Yo-Yo and Ricky deciding to play kind of the slower route in zone, but they have just picked up a couple eliminations as well, so they have to rotate in now, though. Issue is, if you look at the corner of that zone, the edge of the zone, there are duos kind of based up, and if they're aware of the positioning, they could potentially look back at them as they try and rotate in. The good news, which could also be bad news, though, is that the zone has pulled away, so those duos on the edge will have to rotate in, but so will they from the zone, so it's going to be difficult either way.
Yeah, I think this time around it might be including just a little bit of Rift Island on the edge of zone. You're seeing a lot of players kind of wait to go ahead and use the nitro ring, going around and make sure they go the right direction as well. Just a little bit of a hiccup there, no worries. And this is going to ease the pressure of their rotation. See how quickly they're flying across the land. And they're going to even overtake a lot of teams on this rotation, which benefits them because now they're going to be able to look back, try to target out anybody that can. Gears and Charis are trying to do the same to them while they have that opportunity, because there's more teams that are following suit, 2, 3 more teams right behind them that they're going to have to worry about in mere moments.
Clock's ticking. Southern zone. 75 players are still up here in the 5th zone. Most of the danger from Storm Surge does come in 6th and 7th zone, though, so a little bit more time to think about it. You can see how big of a change there was. Nibs and Kiddo, what were they, like 420 above or something? And now instantly dropped to only 124 above. They've quickly positioned themselves around a cactus, though, so now they can go out, peek some opponents, and even if they get tagged, they can heal right back on up.
Yeah. I feel like the only thing they have to worry about is the team is below on Surge, boxes up next to them. And you see them trying to rotate on out. They make a quick pit stop before they make it to zone. And that's a good refresh because they're already on their way there. They have the nitro because they went through the ring, so they don't have to waste any more of those resources. At least not for the next couple of zones. 74 above for Hedra and Kurwa. Not a full feeling of confidence, but at least they know they can get in the zone, focus on their rotation and positioning first before they're now forced to worry about that Storm Surge.
Just 51 above. Big pot is going to be put to good use here, as now they're going to have to start looking for tags. Although they're above, it's still a desperate situation, as you can see how fast it can change. Down to 3, back up to 40. You can see it's taking some opponents close by as well. This could be huge for Kirwa and his duo, though, because it might cause them to make some peaks, as Volko has been left alone. Now, this is not a position I want to be in. 360 below, not even in the zone yet. I don't know how you get out of this one, Jacob.
Yeah, that's just way too far below the threshold. You have a Cola, you have a Fizz. You literally need to make a highlight play if you're looking to survive this, which isn't going to be easy, especially when the one team next to you is Vico and Flixie, who quickly get on out with that Nitro ring. Just got to hope that Cola is going to be worth it because he's actively taking damage from Storm Surge, uses the Flowberry Fizz, trying to find anybody that he can so that way he can try to push into their box. But even if it's one person, a solo, that's not going to be enough damage. He has to hope he gets the elimination, and there's a bunch of med kits and heals that get dropped because of it. Might as well put him on the clock.
50 players. Literally a timer ticking down for Volko here, unless he becomes the Terminator and takes out 3 players in a matter of an instant, but anything's possible. Pickaxe coming through, looking to connect an angle. It was on Thomas HD, but he's disengaging now. Volko, 1 shot away, 1 tick away from getting eliminated as he goes down.
I feel like that's been the story of like Thomas and Queasy. Either they're down on Surge or somebody else is down on Surge and goes and tries to fight him. Another example there as they fall 69 below the damage threshold. Forced to rotate, and they're one of the last teams to rotate in, and that's going to be beneficial because they land a sneaky shot onto Nathan, helping with their Storm Surge total. But you see it's not going to be a lot, which means they're quickly going to continue to fall down that threshold of Storm Surge, but luckily they're going to be 44 above.
I don't even know if that's luckily, Jacob. Just a matter of time before they're below once again. And just like that, 7 below in an instant. Thomas HD forced into desperation once again, trying to connect the shot, but he does it. 207 above now. Queasy has been completely cracked, dropped down to, I'd say, less than 20 HP as they're forced to heal back up now and use the remainder of their shields.
Yeah, I think the thing they might be looking for is a cactus on the ground, anything that they can get their hands on, but blessings did come their way. Zone does pull in their direction. Half and half over towards Redline Rig, where a good portion of the lobby is already there, but most of the players still need to find their footing inside of the zone, and they need to do it quick because the sooner and more they fall behind, they're going to have to battle against every other player gatekeeping them out, and the zone that's going to start to hurt a lot of players.
Significant amount of the lobby has to rotate into Storm as well, or into Zone, better said. It's an East pull, going back to Redline Rig potentially. They have 1 minute now to make their rotation as Storm Surge for this 7th zone is activated once again. Even more damage has to be dealt. I like Chapantini's position though. They have a great line of sight of the opponents in the surrounding area, even though they have to make a rotate now.
Yeah, 8 players need to go down in this zone, and then even after that, it's going to continue with 4 more, so you got to make sure you continue to stay above the damage threshold. Chapantini, 116. They're focusing on their rotation. They do have the forecast tower, so that's leading a lot of their strategy and planning on these rotations.
80 above now. It's going down. That's Pohawa and Comeback making their rotation as well. Thomas HD and Queasy have been able to recuperate their shield. A little low on HP, but not too far behind on damage. A couple more shots is all it should take. Only 44 players up now.
Yep, you see a Flowberry Fizz being used down below. That's a sign of weakness. And one of the best opportunities they're going to get, but you see they're not getting over aggressive. They're not tunnel visioning on this damage. They're experts. They've been here in this situation before, but they got to start to act quick. 111 below the damage threshold. That's not a position you want to be, especially now that Storm Surge is active and you fall in 116 below. Once that avalanche falls, it will continue to get worse and worse and worse. And now they've met against Podesai and Snazy. They're trying to get into the box with the Nitros, but there's just too much health on the wall. And now with Queasy going down, Thomas is at just a worse and worse spot.
Queasy went all in, but there's still 6 below. Thomas now is on the clock as Snazy's going to be the one to put it to an end. 6 eliminations for Snazy, but they're just getting started.
6 elims so far. Crash pad play already winding up with the Flowberry Fizz, staggering themselves long enough so that when they do make it onto the other side, the zone has opened up and they can quickly continue to move in position. Everybody else not having that easy rotation. You've seen a couple players going down on the side. Della's going to be left by himself. Even Swizzy and Vanyak in an exchange with one of them down to just about 50 HP. But Swizzy is trying to alleviate that pressure, push that team further and further back, buy time for Vanyak to heal.
This is 8th zone. We're going to move into moving zones here shortly. We saw a lot of aggression for the high ground in these previous matches. Will we see a repeat of that? Are these players going to try once again? Swizzy Vanyak being one of the duos that played for it in the most recent match. No success for that victory royale just yet, but this could be the one.
Kiddo and Nebs, all that loot. They just picked up a big elimination onto Teeny, leaving Chap by himself. And we can see how that elimination came to fruition. Just a huge crash pad sneak attack. They boxed Teeny up. don't even give a saving chance for Chap to make there.
Now just 7 seconds left until this moving zone starts to close. It did pull northwest, so it's going to go through the red line rig. A lot of these players now have to decide what's their game plan. For Chap, though, he's lost his duo partner, so it's going to be tough.
Yeah, especially with that whole team. They spot you out. They see you're a solo trying to farm up scraps. Say, hey, this guy must be weak. Let's try to get in the box. Whether he dodges this fight or the next, 43 below the damage threshold means he has to start to get a little proactive late in this game to try to survive. There's not that many people that do need to go down overall, but it will be zone after zone that he has to try to survive here. No opportunities given just yet. And now that he has to rotate zone on his back, it's going to get even harder and more risky, but he found a quick drop onto Cammy, misses that opportunity, and now he has to try again.
Unfortunately, was not able to get the box. Cammy's now escaped. Chap, though, still has a decent amount of materials. All he's missing is that little bit of damage. And even though he connected the shotgun shot, still 87 below. Pressure's on him now. Eyes on him as he's forced to pop a cola.
And falling further below that threshold. But if you look at the sky, Swizzy, Vanya, Snazy, Podesai, even Nebs and Kidu are waiting for that opportunity to jump forward. We've seen these high grounds battle all day long today so far and yesterday, where sometimes they wait for the 11th zone, that perfect opportunity where they think their opponent is out of mats to try to take charge. Vanya and Swizzy, they see it coming every opportunity. Podesai launching himself through the sky. They get a couple of quick shots, but nothing to start to feel confident on as the zone moves on over and they connect once more to that high ground.
You can't be too safe on height. We've seen what's happened in the previous matches. Swizzy, Vanyak are going to try and hold on, but 11th zone is when retakes can't happen. Chap has done an amazing job so far as playing it out as a solo. Every single moving zone, he has not had his duo. 3 eliminations already picked up, 31 builds left, but he gets cracked. This could be the end. Yeah,
Emil's just waiting in the corner. Nice opportunity there, but he does have 55 on the Flowberry Fizz. He does have a decent amount of builds to work as a solo, but Zone is on his back. He can't take too many ticks. He won't have a chance to replenish any of that HP, and with pressure from above, he's scrambling around. Malibuka and Mustache, they're just trying to bull rush their way through these builds, not necessarily for the elimination, but just to overtake people on position. Mustache goes down. He gets lost along the way. Now Malibuka once again feeling that pressure as a solo.
Another one added to the list as we look down in the sand. It's Snazy, it's Podesai. Incredible amount of eliminations, confidence from this duo, but they just have to close it out. Cherry goes down. Giro's now left alone. Can Snazy and Podesai clean this one up?
We've seen duos make wonders happen from the low ground, especially if they're able to stay healthy. They have the materials, and they quickly run through a lot of these teams. Snazy's claiming space along with Podesai to the front side of zone. That gives them a chance to look back if they so choose, and everybody else on that mid layer is going at it with 2 players at the top of the world right now, Swizzy and Vanya. Nothing to worry about at all. They have the 3 medkits, clear-cut win condition in their inventory. They just got to play this one out.
They're so high up, I don't think you can get there even with a crash pad. So now it comes down to what's going to happen on the low ground. We know there's a full duo down below. The players that are slowly going to run out of materials are going to come crashing down and fight Podesai and Snazy. But in the meantime, Swizzy and Vanyak have free reigning from above to apply that pressure. I don't know who's going to take it home, Jacob. It's going to be close.
Yeah, there's 3 solos running around, -1 as Podesai gets an elimination. Him and Swizzy are so weak. They need the time to get the medkits. Zone is forcing them in. They run out of builds and they run out of time. And there goes another elimination. Absolute necessity to gather those materials. Podesai is typing in, and now it comes down to a 2v2. High ground versus low ground, and the inevitable is going to happen as Swizzy drops down low, trying to play Disruptor. Great shot on the Podesai, forcing Snazy in the zone to start his heal off just a little bit early. Whoa. The first knock is going to come in. Swizzy is just trying to go ahead and get as many of these materials out of his way as he finally makes that last dash. Gets cut just a little bit short, and now it's Snazy and Vanya. Who has more heals? Who has more med kits? So far, there's 2 more for Vanya. On the other side, he just ran clear out. Snazy runs out of time. Vanya and Swizzy, the major 2 champions, do it again. They advance to the grand finals.
I was waiting for this to happen. I thought it was going to be day 1, but day 2 is when Swizzy and Vanya take it home. Unfortunately, the duo on low ground did not have enough time. They played the heal off a little too early, and the freedom of height not being contested by 3 other duos is what granted them that golden ticket.
Yeah, they ran out of builds there. Snazy and Podesai on the low ground the last moments. They weren't able to continue to claim space like they wanted, which allowed Swizzy to drop down freely, get the first of 2 eliminations, and luckily they didn't have heals on the other side, because that would have been a close one otherwise.
What I love to see are these returning duos. The chemistry built between these players are what's leading them to the victories in these matches. I believe every single match except for one has been taken home by a returning duo. So we'll see if that trend continues right after this short break. See you soon.
Hello, welcome back to the Major 3 semi-finals of FNCS. And we are 3 games down, 2 more to go. And finally, a sleeping giant duo have taken a victory royale as Swizzy and Vanyak have booked their spots in next weekend's grand final. And not a moment too soon, Mini Miner.
Yeah, it was just a matter of time before these guys are going to get themselves into the grand finals. A little bit later than I personally expected. I expect them to get the job done on day number 1. But it was a very different sort of win to what we've seen throughout the day. We just literally spoke about how a lot of teams might start to opt to go for low ground. And it seemed like that was what happened. Swizzy and Vanyak had the freest height of the day. They seemed to play it really well. The 11, they were spraying down second height. Nobody even had a chance to go up and crash pad onto them. So really nicely played more often than not.
Yeah, they sort of playing a height like, you know, how people were playing at the start of the season almost, where when we had fists in the game, or at least in competitive, where like they were super high, like they were not in range. Even if people had tried to go up there, it would have been pretty difficult for people to catch them. I think the main thing as well, like you sort of highlighted there, Minnie, is like there were a lot of teams who were like looking decent to be able to provide. Like Malibu and Mustache had good amount of materials. They had Crash, they had Fizz. They could have tried, but they didn't want to. I think a lot of people are getting to a stage where they're like, should we even play for Hype, man? Like it's been hard out here already. So Swizzy and Maniac benefit from that. The reigning champs back in FNCS Grands. Can't wait to see them.
Do you think that's why we saw a bit less action on the high ground this time around? The fact that because lower ground duos have been finding success, these duos are now going, right, we're just going to fight each other undercover, not give the guys up top any opportunity to take shots, and we're just going to fight amongst ourselves, I guess you could say, as Snazy and Podesai nearly managed to capitalise on Levin.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of a bunch of different things. There was some difficult pulls there towards the end, right? Going in and out of red line. I think some of the teams that maybe would have went up for it just weren't stacked enough to. Some of the teams that were stacked enough to, again, just opted to play lower down below. Snazy and Podesai being one of those teams. And, you know, when we were talking in, you know, behind the scenes, Frank, you said this is the best I've seen them play in ages, right? And it definitely did feel that way. They were, you know, playing like Snazy and Podesai of yesteryear, and it was fun to see them sort of cooking up there. But again, unfortunately, not to get the win against a very good Maniac and Swizzy.
Yeah, and it's been a decent overall season for Snazy and Podesai. They've kind of gone under the radar a little bit, but they've had some solid Cash Cup performances. They've been one of the teams that we always know have the ability, we always know that have the experience to do well in these sorts of lobbies. It's just a matter of time before that ended up coming through, particularly today as well, contested at Mount Olympus by a couple of other teams. The only way's up now for this duo, so hopefully they'll be able to find some more success in the last couple of games, because they definitely have the potential to.
Well, they're in 11th now, so they just went up 21 places. If they can keep up the performance, have another solid one in the next couple of games, then we should see them in the upper bracket tomorrow. Or who knows, maybe they'll get themselves a victory royale. I have to say, a player who's really been standing out for me today has to be Malibuka Mini Miner, winning that 2v1 off spawn versus Noah and Aqua. He was able to reboot Mustache, and he's had some fantastic solo end-game moments, not just in this game, but all weekend.
Yeah, he's been playing really well. It's nice to see Malibuka doing well. He's always been one of those players that has the solo pop-off potential. If you look at all the players individually in this lobby, you have to say he's one of the best at it, doing solo clutch and stuff. We've spoken about it so many times, and this game was nice to see. It was nice to see that even though they had their backs against the walls at the beginning of the game, they still managed to clutch up, make some sort of an end game out of it. But in this format, some sort of an end game out of it is not enough at the moment. They need to try and find out how to win. Luckily for them, one of the high ground teams of Swizzy and Vaniac have already gone through, so maybe that gives them the green light to try and go out for themselves.
Would you like to see some interesting numbers? Some facts for you?
Sure.
What does that sound like? Good? Good to you, Levin?
Yeah, I didn't hear you again like earlier. I'm not being rude. I'm not ignoring you, but yeah,
It's okay.
It's fine.
I was trying to make some numbers sound tantalizing, and to be fair, I could have done a better job of it, but this is a summary from today's action so far in terms of stats. Headshot accuracy, Vaniac, that's no surprise, Levin, but Nebs with the damage ratio, that's maybe more of a surprise to me. I don't know, are you shocked by that number?
I've got to put some respect on Nebs, man. This is Nebs we're talking about, Big Nebsy. I mean, this is what he does, right? Like Minnie said at the start of the day, like Nebs is one of them players that has the ability to just switch it on, right, at any given moment. And yeah, high damage outputs and not taking much damage definitely is his MO. So not too surprised with that one.
I'm looking at chat there as well. 12 eliminations. That means that Teeny has 4. They have 16 total. So Chap today has been really performing incredibly well, much like Malibuka in that team. Even in the end game, just clutching up as many placements as he possibly could as a solo. Ultimately, that's not what's going to matter to them right now. They're going to be secured for tomorrow. So they just have to play for this win. And I think the fact that Swizzy and Vaniac had a really nice game on height there was down to the fact that Chat was a solo. I think if Teeny was alive, it would have looked a lot different up on height.
I was about to ask you just that, Mini Miner. Is it because Chat was solo, so he was just like, I'm just gonna get some limbs here, but I'm not gonna risk things against the likes of Swizzy and Vaniac. However, as you point out, these guys, they're now in the grand finals. We're not going to see Swizzy and Vaniac again, at least this weekend, I have to say. So, Chap and Teeny, are they our new high ground kings of this lobby, Levin?
You'd put them up there. Yeah, there's a couple teams that have been vying for that spot, but Chap and Teeny will definitely be probably highest on that list, yeah.
Yeah, Brutal Breach
Minimum.
on con now as well. So let's see who ends up going there. Maybe teams will switch things up. Maybe some of the north side teams will think, actually, you know what? We need to get on in the south side party here.
Get on the cactus.
Yes, basically.
Let's see who is going to have a high ground party in the end game of game number 4, because we are ready to board the battle bus with Jacob PR and Takata.
Thank you so much, Frankie. Look, we gotta take a second to talk here, Jacob. Right now, there's 2 matches left to be played out. 3 have already been played. So that means the cutoff to make upper bracket tomorrow is top 23. You know who's there right now, Jacob? It's Cammy and Seti at 54 points. We'll see if they can do it. The battle bus is ready. Let's get into the second last match of the day.
Saying that right there, Takata, you just saw the worry on my face, the nervousness, the anxiousness of will they make it through, won't they make it through. They're literally on the cusp with 2 games left. And it's a team that I feel like we all thought, even, you know, people in the chat, the community making their predictions, that they would be a lock to at least win a game. And now they're in danger of dropping down to the lower bracket.
I got some thoughts on that, but look at this first. Clement was tired of spending time in this early game engagement, going on the roof, farming the chest. They said, you know what, 50-50, all or nothing. Let's see who picks up those weapons first. And just like that, some quick little eliminations, but back once again, Jacob, at Redline Rig.
Surprisingly enough, I feel like Mustache and Malabuka have been doing just a little bit better in some of these games without the medallion, without the mythic weapon. They still haven't been able to push far enough to get that big win. High ground's going to go to Noah Riley and Aqua. Low ground's going to go to Malabuka and Mustache. And even though game 1 was a close fight, that went in way of Malabuka and Mustache. Game 2, same, or game 3, I should say, the same results.
The only game that was like a very fast engagement was the first one. Since then, they've been taking a bit more time to actually complete this fight. But it looks like this time around, Aqua's been knocked down. It's all up to Noah Rayleigh now. Mustache, Malabuka, both incredibly low, just 1 shot away from being knocked down. The issue is if Noah gives them some time to breathe, if Noah lets Malabuka and Mustache heal up, it could lead to his demise. But with that initial knock, Noah now has the advantage.
Yeah, there's only 2 builds, though, on the side of Noah. Mustache is just scrambling around trying to stay alive. Noah's going to go and look for that elimination, but Malabuka is crawling away. That's Siphon match. That is crucial amount of materials that he can use getting his inventory. Mustache is going to do the same thing on the other side. Bubble shield going down, learning from the mistakes, but not learning fast enough. Dropping from the top. Noah's going to take him down. Mustache and Malabuka are out of here.
Back and forth between these 2 duos. You can see how difficult it can be being contested, which is why 7 out of 8 games have been won by uncontested duos today. You can see the trouble it causes. The good news for Mustache and Malabuka, though, is that they're currently at the top end of the leaderboard, not including the winners. They're technically 3rd place right now, but I might have just spoken too soon, Jacob, in the blink of an eye. Looks like Aqua and Noah are going to be joining Malabuka Mustache in the lobby.
Man, I was preparing to have a whole spiel of how much they needed it. They got 4 points going into this game, and immediately Kaido and Hydra. It's almost the same thing that they did in that last game to get those same eliminations. And now they're going to get a big chance here now that they're going to get that loot yet again. Swizzy and Vanya gone. You see another team moving over, Finn and Kenty, trying to take Brutal Beachhead for themselves.
Looks like they're going to be able to do it too. I got scared a little bit. Maybe the NPC was going to take them out with as much HP that Finn got left with. But this should be a pretty easy cleanup as they could continue to take over the Brutal Beachhead. But to add on what you were saying, Jacob, I mean, CZB Nathan, our leaders from yesterday, basically, down in 48th place. Noah Aqua in 46th place. Cammy Seti on the cutoff of the upper bracket. We can see kind of what happened here to Vidil. Nice little pickup by Kentic. But was Reason able to get out? Oh no. A little too high on the crash pad. That's so unfortunate.
Right into the shark
be careful.
mouth. And that's the thing, bro. They switched up, multiple teams switched up their drop spot the moment Swizzy and Vanya won that game, got away from Brutal. but that's something that we talk about week after week, major after major in these formats, to where when one team wins, it does open up a spot, but when multiple teams have that same idea, perfect example of what happens.
Uh-oh. The slow patience, is it gonna pay off for Tarps and his duo partner here as Volko and Cringe? All it would take is that one decision to, you know what, let's get a bit of extra loot. Let's go up to the rooftop. There's some floor spawns. Little do they know, that could lead to their demise. Look, they're being cautious though.
They know.
Yeah, they're putting walls down, they're pre-building. You can never be too safe. And that's what you get from experience in these lobbies.
They did it for 2 floors so far. I just want to see them continue to be
3,
safe for the 3rd floor. Like, if they just walk up there and some big shots get landed. Oh, no. Yeah, I get it.
Wow.
I get it. In everybody's house, you don't put anything important in the attic.
That's crazy, though. They went up 2 floors. And out of, I don't know if it's pure luck or what, they decided, you know what? We don't got to go to the attic. Pop the nitro splash, continue with the rotate. I don't think they had a clue that there was a duo up top above them, but those are things only we're gonna know now. Us in the chat. Just a quick reminder, this is day 2, similar format, same format basically to day 1, where 5 duos will qualify directly to the grand finals through a victory royale. And if you're unable to do that, you have to get top 20 or top 25, including the game winners, on the leaderboard to maintain your spot in the upper bracket for tomorrow. If you're coming from the lower bracket that's being played out at the same time right now with even more duos, all you got to do is get top 30, and then you will also move to tomorrow in the upper bracket.
You know, we saw that threshold move pretty hastily yesterday in the last game. Right now, it currently sits at 46 points. So I got to imagine if you find yourself 100, 110 points, you're a lock for tomorrow's upper bracket. And you can kind of play a little bit more loosely, a little bit more flexible in these last 2 games. Try things out, go for that high ground, get those big wins, because that's what we've seen throughout the majority of these games is the multiple players battling it out for that high ground. Sometimes the low ground wins out, but more times than not, we've been seeing some big victories come out of the high ground.
Are we getting another southern zone here, Jacob? Another south pole? Yesterday was all about north zones. Now it's looking a lot more like a south zone type of day.
Switch it up, you know? Making sure to keep these players on their toes. Which means, like you were talking about, you mentioned a few times as well, if the zones continue to pull towards the south or near these cactuses in general, it's just going to increase that storm surge threshold. And I feel like if you're one of those teams that lands towards the north side of the map and you're not like Queasy and Thomas rotating towards the south, you're putting yourself at a major disadvantage on these south zones.
And if you're new here, you're like, what are these 2 weird people talking about? Storm surge damage, what's going on? It's a mechanic here that's seen a lot in these competitive tournaments where there's a minimum damage threshold that you have to reach depending on the zone you're in. It's how much damage you've done to your opponents, and if you don't reach that, you're gonna end up losing HP per second. For Kovacs though and his duo partner, they might not have to worry about it if they can get some eliminations, but on the other hand, if they get eliminated here, they're only gonna have 1 more shot, 1 more opportunity to qualify in the last match.
Oh, that was a much needed push towards the top. Huddy's just had a sliver of HP. Getting nervous, running around. Now both of them are weak. Piece control goes on over. Vico continues to advance in, but he's taking it step by step, piece by piece, trying to get it underneath his control, and he knows now he has to be careful. That third-party team has now moved over on into the distance, and they're fighting for a possible bunker here in the future, if you guys are wondering what is causing a lot of this commotion.
Shots continuing to come through, getting that real estate to make sure there's no surprises as you continue to push on forwards. But I believe Emil and his duo partner have already disengaged from the situation, so the bunker looks like it is going to be for Flixie and Vico. Or wait. Wait a minute.
But wait, there's more. They're just kind of hiding. I'm not sure Vico and Flixie are going to take the bait that they actually ran away. Yeah, you probably still see and hear the footsteps above, but you have to know that the way this fight went down, you got to know how much damage you actually put down. That they shouldn't be brave enough to go down there, and if they do, you're at a massive advantage due to the damage differential.
Yeah, what we've seen happen sometimes is once players know there is a duo in the bunker, they can choose to kind of hold them on the outskirts of it, but they don't have enough HP to do that, in my opinion. It would just be too risky at this point. They don't even have as much loot as Flixie and Vico, so it's almost just asking to get eliminated, which is why they decided to disengage. Flixie even got some shots onto them.
Okay, now they get the choice here because of all the gold, and they can now upgrade all their weapons with their attachments. Even though they don't necessarily need the scopes, because you see a purple DMR right there, which is going to come with one. If they don't like it, if it's a thermal and they want a 4X, or if it's a 4X and they want a thermal, they now have more than enough gold to go ahead and upgrade what they need. Probably adding an extra couple of shots to the Gatekeeper, the laser onto the Thunderburst with the recoil. So you can kind of see where these guys are getting their loot off spawn and then just kind of packing a punch with those bunkers.
I know the Chapentini kind of like to play those shots from afar, but it looks like they've kind of based up on their Surge base here. Dexy and Eclipses. I'm wondering what the ultimate game plan from this is going to be.
I'm almost wondering if that forecast tower even spawned on that side of the map.
Yeah, it is
How quickly Chapentini are over here. Yes, the zone is moving over, but typically when they have that forecast tower, they stagger themselves so far back. They're not afraid to stay in the zone around a couple of those launch pads that they use to base up. And then from there, they kind of rotate in. So coming in early, it's not confirmed just yet, but I do feel like they're lacking the forecast tower in this game.
On the other hand, Pixie and Yanis. We've seen quite a lot of them today. Still unable to secure that victory royale, though. 15th place on the leaderboard so far, so they're kind of on the mid-range of qualifying to that upper bracket. Not entirely safe, but not in true danger yet. With one elimination, you can see they know it's still not enough as they're looking to see if there's any players in the surrounding area, but they do have launch pads around them that they can use to rotate later on.
Yeah, because how well they played so far throughout these 3 games. I know they're in their 4th now. 92 points. They're well above that threshold for that top 25 on the leaderboard. So they have the upper bracket spot secured. So with these next 2 games, I want to see them maybe make a play for a high ground later on in the game. We know they've done it once before. Didn't work out for them. But I don't want that to kind of scare them away from trying to contest it. Because we saw last game, nobody really contested that high ground, which made for an easy end game for Swizzy and Vanya.
Stillion here at Mount Olympus. They were on top of a duo, but it looks like a disengagement is going to come through. Nothing too aggressive yet. Kind of a relaxed part of the match so far. Something interesting that we've seen from these South Poles is players like Cammy and Seti, who were first place in terms of total time spent inside of the Storm on day 1, and now all the way down at 28th. As we're getting so many of these southern zones close to their drop spot, which also might make it a bit more difficult to get kind of those freer rotates using the cactuses, using the storm. So it kind of shows that sometimes you might not even want specific zone pulls. Chapentini, though, being a duo that is more than comfortable in the zone right now.
Kind of scraping together for some loot. Just judging by the gray Gatekeeper, I feel like this might be one of those games where they didn't get anything. They didn't get their bunker. They didn't get their forecast tower. So now we get a chance to really see them perform with less, but at the same time, you know, I was completely wrong, and I'll admit I'm wrong. The DMR, the Flowberry Fizz, that's a clear giveaway. Forecast tower. It's a clear giveaway. They do have forecast towers, so, you know, proud to admit I'm wrong there in that occasion.
You know, you never know, Jacob. Maybe just got lucky. Pulled it out of a chest. Ooh, look at this. A lot of sneaky plays that we've seen throughout this tournament. Sometimes it's what you've got to do. We saw Murstache Malibuka play towards the Rift Islands, but this time around, some new duos trying to claim the flag.
There's not too much going down all around. Few players on top of Rift Island. A good number of them positioned underneath likely waiting to use the rifts just like this, but he's going to be by himself. He has a good amount of information as he floats on over, and the fact that he's not taking shots has to give him even more information that there might not be a lot of teams positioned over here. So if he's looking for a reboot, sooner is better than later, because the more this zone closed, the more everybody's going to be stacked around, and the less of a chance, even if he does get the reboot, that his teammate will survive.
2 eliminations for Colbert. I'm wondering if this is the same. They went up against the same duo we saw previously in Mount Olympus. There was a lot of action in this area of the map.
I wonder what they're looking for, but just all that fallen loot. There was another team fishing with the EMPs over here. I wonder if they possibly got crash padded on. Just theory crafting there, because now they get all that loot and some. As Thomas and Queasy, thanks to their early rotation out of Classy Courts, they're still able to move past this portion of the zone, because you saw moments ago when I was talking about that solo, a lot of open space. The same thing could be said here for Queasy and Thomas. They not only need to plan their rotation perfectly, they need to time it right, because there is a duo right above them in that path towards the top of the mountain.
Yeah, and Thomas and Queasy is a duo that is playing more for that victory royale, being in 40th place right now. They're not even in the upper bracket for tomorrow. They have a lot of points that they need to secure if they want that. And lower bracket is not where you want to be, so if anything, they're looking to see if they can take home one of these last 2 matches. For Nine and Della, I've been playing quite consistent towards the late game, but haven't quite been able to fully finish the job.
Tini taking down Nathan in the feed. Fanayan and Della just trying to get a couple more shots when it comes to surge. They're outside of the zone, but they also know a couple other teams are going to have to rotate along with them. And that's what they're using as an opportunity, but same thing could be said for them. Fanayan takes a quick little shot as he finally peeks out to try to rotate, but he gets into a whole nother team. But Della was able to get an elimination onto Hedra, replenishing some of those resources, and vital resources that they need. If you look at Fanayan's material count, so low.
Gotta be careful, as now the pressure from zone is on the backside, but luckily enough, the zone isn't small enough to have the focus on them. There's not too many duos in the surrounding area. Gunbree actually getting cracked here. Kira seems to be the one that's the fresh ingredients in the sandwich of both players. Clownski and Axe Force now making use of that Rift Island, the rifts, the launch pads to rotate towards zone, but only being 61 above, now 2 above, you'd hope that they position themselves close to other duos, which is exactly what they've done here.
This is just another one of those positions where you can't really build the full wall because of the environment that's already built there. It is a little bit of a half wall. You can kind of tell that it's edited, causing a little bit of struggles for them to try to reposition themselves inside of that house. But they made it towards the front side of the zone, or at least on the edge. So a lot of those teams behind them, they're going to get a chance to look back. As you check on board, Cammy and Seti switching up their play styles drastically from day 1 to day 2. And day 1, they were first in total time spent in the zone. Now they're around 28th. Changing things up, and I think that's a necessity, simply because now with a lot of teams taking note of those forecasts, or the bases for the cactuses, the surge that they're able to get, these guys are just trying to position accordingly from what they've learned through day 1.
Those southern pulls, now the zone's going more close to where they drop, meaning they don't really have to play inside of the storm. Slove dropped down to 129 below. He has lost his duo partner. With only 15 builds, he doesn't have a lot of options to choose from. There is 2 duos fighting a solo close by, but instead of going for that, he is going to choose to make it towards zone. A player ahead of them. This could be it. Nice little knock. Huge pickup from Slove. Is it enough loot, though? Is it enough damage to bring him zone, as his duo partner is not going to let that one slide?
Yeah, Floppy just trying to go in, phase through the builds just a little bit. Luckily, Slove was not only able to get out, but get himself a full box on the other side, but now zone is forcing him in. He doesn't have any HP in his inventory to replenish, so he has to get there rather quickly, and it's dealing a huge chunk of damage, 5 per second that he is deep into that zone, 62 above the threshold. Floppy's not done with you just yet, and he enacts revenge on the Slove for taking down his teammate. Sweet little find there on ammo. Accidentally breaking one of those big ammo crates. 49 above. They do have some elevation, which means they could stagger themselves back just a little bit, let a couple of these other teams overtake them on the rotation, and then they can crash pad their way towards zone since they're not too far off. And it does look like they have a solo in their line of sights, trying to take him out before they're forced to go on their rotation. You can see where the zone is pulling Takata. A lot of different mountain ranges, different elevations. So the material count and keeping track of it is going to be so important. Slow and steady wins the race, and they're just hoping that somebody's going too fast for their own good. But they do kind of break into a box on the other side. Emil goes down as well into the box along with him, but at least he gets elimination and gets out alive. His two teammates just got ripped apart. Queasy and Thomas elevated much lower than everybody else, which is going to work out for them. You see the zone pulling towards the south, but it is going to be an eastern pull as well, which means they have a clear line of sight with very few duos. They just need to be able to survive this lobby focus, which has been happening them far too often in games like these, especially in the big moments. But Thomas, I think, has had enough. He gets a knock onto one. Queasy running around helps him on the other side. They get the full-on duo wipe out of the lobby, but the pressure hasn't slowed down just yet. And they're going to be able to survive, Takata. This could be the moment.
The moment we've been waiting for. Can they turn those tables around? From issues in the early, the mid game, not able to fully make it to the late game. Thomas HD and Queasy now have one shot, an opportunity from 40th place on the leaderboard to now the potential of taking home a victory royale. That's the best part of these semifinals, no matter how bad they've been doing throughout the day. All it takes is one victory royale. Great crash pad rotate into zone. Thomas actually got knocked. Queasy, do you have time? Please tell me you do. 4 HP is what Queasy's gonna make it out with. Now he's gonna be forced to use a med kit.
This is like dreams and nightmares all at once. Dream to stay alive, a nightmare what just happened, but they still find a way. 600 damage above the threshold. Storm Surge is not gonna be a worry from here on out, but if you look at their position, they're like stuck in a little crevice underneath the mountain. If it continues to pull up towards that mountainside, which is the south, the eastern part of the map, and even towards the north, it is going to be a hurtful situation to be in, but they get blessed. A little bit of a southwest pull, which means they have a little bit of pressure that's going to ease up.
A little bit of time, but you got to be careful because it looks like Cringe and Volko are in desperate need of surge. And look at that duo that's ahead of them. It's Queasy and Thomas HD in the crevice. Both duos having to rotate as they decide to tank a bit of storm damage and make it into zone, while Cringe and Volko now are in desperate need of damage.
I'm just hoping that maybe Saw Cactus is outsoared towards the other side. Medkits as well from the battle that they've won. Cringe and Volko, though, are now on the clock. They're below the threshold. Yeah, it might only be 5, but that does the same damage regardless, and they're looking for opportunities. Roban just comes charging in, takes down Cringe, forcing the medkit usage out of Volko a lot earlier than he'd hoped to use it.
No crash pads, nothing to get him back into zone. He's gonna have to try and sprint in, but will he make it? I don't think he can. Another medkit is gonna be forced to be popped. This isn't even a heal off. This is just survival.
Yeah, the only chance he has right now is to find any cactuses, because the medkit's not even going to save you in this situation. He cannot go to zone. Seconds are left, and he goes down in 19th place. Valiant effort for them, but they're leaving it for the last and final game to try to get their ticket to the grand finals.
So far, height is going to be claimed by Haijo Kaido. Thomas HD, Queasy still up down below. Queasy actually having picked up an elimination. Vico and Flixie as well looking incredibly strong down on low.
Big shots towards the side, catching a lot of players off guard. Even when they get pressured from above, they take no time wasted to back down, reposition, knowing that where that next rotation is going to come from. Quickly move on over to the side. They know it's opened up, and they know it's smooth sailing. Very few teams are going to be on that side, but Pixie is down below the threshold. Even with the most damage done in game number 1, his job is not over just yet. With 3 medkits, he has that win condition, but now he needs to figure out where he's going to get the damage from, with no choice but to scramble around, trying to get to the front side of the zone. He knows there's nobody that can get him a safe and easy target, so the medkits have to come out now.
Heal off begins. Issue is, How long will it take for these players to get eliminated? Will he be able to out-heal the threshold? Will he have to look for damage? 156 is a lot of damage, Jacob. The good news is the zone's pulled back. He has a bit of time to breathe, but just one more medkit left. Thomas HD now playing alone.
Only a couple more players do need to go down. Storm Surge deactivates Thomas. We saw Queasy down below. He got knocked. He had no choice but to leave him by himself. And we've seen some big solo plays before, but now we need to see almost the impossible of a solo clutch. He gets the first down, but he cannot continue to go in. He takes his time, and now he's reappeared, re-emerged into this occasion. He's trying to use the nitros to go through these builds, and he's finally found a way to escape. Even with the elimination being cleaned up, he can't reap any of the rewards because of it.
Thomas, just 20 HP, 2 ticks until he gets eliminated to Storm, but he is annihilating his opponents up to 4 eliminations. He just needs a bit of HP. He cannot even pick up the loot.
He has no choice, can't take 2, and he takes, he falls down. Thomas is out. Him and Queasy have to go again in the 5th and final game of the day. And if you look in the sky, well, everybody's distracted down below. Haijo and Kaido have elevated themselves above the rest. And if this is anything like last game, since they are not contested, they should have it in the bag.
A lot cleaner high ground positioning now as Raban is going to go down below, hits the initial tag, gets the crack, gets the finish, but he goes down. And look who it is. It's Cammy and Seti.
So many juggernauts got taken out of the lobby. Cammy's taken the sacrifice out of zone, and it's going to work out. They get another elimination. They get a ton of mats, and this is the difference from last game to this. Now they're able to claim space from above. So now when the inevitable happens and they drop down to challenge it, this is their space. I'm not even coming down to it.
Cammy get eliminated. Haijo has 2 medkits. Cammy has 3. He beats him in terms of a heal off. The issue is when the drop down happens, are they going to go for the full-on engagement? Do they have time? Do they have materials to play the heal off? It's all or nothing.
Yep, they claimed all that space down below. The sacrifice that Cammy took. You notice he gave the medkits to Seti. Win condition is there. Down goes Cammy. Kaido's scrambling around. Seti's still alive. 3 medkits in the inventory. Haijo's still holding on to the zone. He is outmatched when it comes to total amount of medkits, but he has a big health lead because of it. 2 more medkits in the inventory for Seti. 1 more in the inventory for Haijo. This is literally going to come down to the wire with a grand final spot on the line. The last medkit already being used for Haijo. He's going to be clear out after this. 1 more in the inventory for Seti, but that one's already going to be used. Now Haijo has to go on a hunt, find some cactuses,
he
does. There's 2 right there. 2 cactuses back to back, but Seti finds more medkits. He finds more medkits on the other side. The great scramble from Haijo is over. Seti and Cammy finally do it. They qualify to the finals.
It's been done. We've been waiting for this moment, and they've done it. Cammy and Seti qualified now to the grand finals with one of the most intense heal-offs we've seen to today's date. I got scared for a moment, Jacob. I saw the cactuses. I said, have they done it? But Cammy and Seti with the extra med kit is going to secure that seat on the bus to the grand finals.
Yeah, if he didn't find that extra med kit, the cactuses would have won Haijo the game. But you got to give it to Cammy right here. This play right here essentially is what pushed him over the top. I know we didn't see it, but he ran back. He grabbed all those materials back there, and that's what allowed them to claim the space on the low ground and get the inevitable win.
Great shots at the end as well. That had me on the edge of my seat, but Jacob, we are not done yet. Cammy and Seti took home the 4th match of the day, but there's still 1 more match to be played out to crown our final winners of day 2 of the semifinals, and we'll get to that right after this quick break, so don't go anywhere. We'll see you soon.
and welcome back to FNCS. And if you don't know, I just said Polish, and the reason I said Polish was because Cami and Seti have done what they do best, which is seemingly coming out of nowhere and getting a victory royale. And it was a case of Cactus versus Medkit in that final heal-off, Levin.
It was. I mean, Cami and Seti, you know, they've been a bit quiet at times this season, but again, when they need to most, you expect them to show up. And this endgame, the way it sort of closed out was perfect for them. You can see there they picked up the third medkit off of Werix's body, but there was so much loot on the ground there towards the end, Mini, and you can see there was a bunch of medkits there, and we were calling it out. They just need to play for the heal-off now, because they've got the 3 medkits. There's going to be a couple more there. We've not seen many games come down to heal-off so far in the semis upper bracket, but when they have, usually it's not over 3 medkits. So as soon as I see they have 3 medkits plus more on the ground, I'm like, it has to be the win. Like, it has to be, they're good. It came close. Hydro made it close, but in the end, Seti and Cami were able to get their dub.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned when Cami went down there and Seti was also just running in the storm, popping those medkits. He actually just about got them off as well. There was a couple of moments where I thought, actually, he's even going to get these medkits off with the storm ticking his health. But yeah, really nicely played from this duo. Squashes my prediction of them actually going through tomorrow, but I'm very happy for them getting a win. They haven't really done too much today. It hasn't really been the best day for them despite being uncontested. Yesterday, they had a more consistent day. They had a third, and a 10th. They just couldn't quite find that win. Today, though, they've capitalized on their big end game and now they're in the grounds.
I was waiting.
You have to give props as well to Hydro and Kaito as well, because they actually third-partied Noah and Aqua after Noah and Aqua took out Mursash and Malibuku at the start of the game, and obviously at the end gave us a huge highlight and a fantastic showdown, Levin.
Yeah, man, they started off this game hot, right? They swooped in, picked Noah up really quickly, and you're thinking that's the momentum they need, right? You know, they have everything in their power to now go forward and have a good game. And to be fair to them, like, they did as well as they could in this situation. For Hydro to even have made the heal-off stretch that long for somebody against someone who had like 5 medkits is super impressive, right? So big ups to them. Again, not the result they would have wanted though, right? Because in his head, he's probably thinking, I've done everything. I kind of popped a bunch of medkits. I even added some sort of slurp cacti to that heal-off as well. Like, how can I not get a win? Look at him. He's in disbelief. He's thinking, how on earth have I not won that game? Like, and honestly, I'm there with him in most cases. He's a bit unfortunate there.
Well, you know what it was? Actually, Hydro went to farm a brick at the top there because they actually ran out of materials when there was that final 2v2. Cami and Seti had all the materials in the world down on low ground. Hydro went to farm a brick inside of the storm, used about 50 HP on that. I think he may have popped a medkit or even just had to pop the medkit a little bit earlier because of that as well. And of course, I reckon if they didn't have to do that, if they had 5, maybe 10 extra bills, they might have just clutched it there at the end. And that's the difference that these end games can make.
Fine margins. Fine margins.
Such fine margins. But you know what? There's a margin that is looming for Thomas and Queasy. I don't know if we're able to see any more pages of the standings, but I believe that Thomas and Queasy were outside of the top 40 going into that game, and they are desperately fighting for the upper bracket. But this performance from Thomas, hopefully Mini Minor, will put them in better standing to make that upper bracket tomorrow. Yeah,
I mean, it was a really, really good clutch from Queasy actually earlier on in this game, and it was just this moment right here you can see on the screen. He managed to get in with just 4 HP, reviving Thomas, which, as we know, paid off in dividends because, of course, Thomas managed to do a crazy solo clutch later on in the game, managed to stay alive for so much longer than he should have. And it's those extra placement points, Levin. It's those extra clutches that can make the difference in these lobbies.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think Thomas and Queasy, honestly, before we saw the sort of clutch moment where Queasy revived him and everything, I forgot they were playing in this lobby. I'll be real. Those are my guys, but I forgot they were even here. But it was good to see them get that clutch. They need a big game now. I think they're just outside top 25 to stay in the upper bracket for tomorrow.
Well, listen, that's the end game, boys, but can we talk about the situation with Surge Towers being built around cactuses that we're seeing every single game of the semi-finals? I think it's something that our duos have learned to do since the qualifiers, and it's really impacting how things are going down, Mini Minor.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, the lobby is turning into a whole skyscraper-filled city at the moment. There's just towers everywhere, and you can see exactly where those slurp cacti are, and then the surge bases that people are making in relation to the location of those slurp cacti. You can see there's a bit of a correlation here, Levin. Everyone wants to box up next to those slurp cacti because it just gives you unlimited HP.
I mean, yeah, when you look back in the past at different, you know, FNCS winning performances, a lot of the time you have players who have access to a lot of loot, right? And so they can get spare shields, and they usually will keep spare shields located somewhere near them so that they can go fight for Surge, use your spare shields. this is even way easier than that, right? And more people have access to it, right? You just have the cactus that gives you almost infinite shield as long as it recharges and you're still in the zone. And so, yeah, everybody's trying to get on that because it's one of the best ways to get Storm Surge in these lobbies.
It does make you a sitting duck, though. And it does mean that, you know, if no one does come to you, then you might actually start getting hit, no matter how much you try to heal up. So I want to see more fighting. I'm not going to lie. I don't want to see people resting by their cactus. But you know what? It's not up to me. I'm not a pro player. I'm just the one whose job it is to throw to the commentators. So I'm going to do that one last time for day 2 of the semi-finals. It's game number 5 with Takata and Japheth PR.
Time truly flies when you're having fun, Takata. The day has gone by so fast, and now we're in the last and final game of the day. We've talked about the big wins, but right now that 25th spot on the leaderboard, advancing to the upper bracket tomorrow, is 76 points. We got a big game ahead of us, so let's get right into it.
You said it yourself, Jacob. The cutoff, 76 points. Going into the previous match, it was Cammy and Seti that were on that cutoff, on that borderline. However, they have now qualified with the Victory Royale. The new players close to that borderline, Vidil Reason, Thomas HD, Queasy. A lot of these top tier duos that have not only yet to have qualified, but also might not even make it to the upper bracket if they don't do a good job in this last match.
There's a lot of pressure. Different types of pressure depending on where you're at in leaderboard, but the further down you are, you get pressure to get into that top 25. You get pressure to win that game so you don't have to go to tomorrow, because any team that does not make it out of lower bracket round 2 today, your FNCS is over. So for a lot of these teams, they got to take this extra chance knowing that they will go to tomorrow and try to run with it.
And for the players currently competing in the lower brackets, top 30, what they're looking for. We're going to focus here on the last opportunity to qualify directly to the grand finals through a Victory Royale. After this, it's all consistency, Jacob. It's all consistency. And we'll see if Murstache Malabuka have that in the early game.
This is one of those moments right here. Another contested drop right out of the gates. Noah and Aqua currently sit with 12 points. 46th place on the leaderboard. And I feel like that's why you see them just take a little bit different of approach, a little bit slower, not necessarily working their way from the top down. They want to make sure they have the loot, they have the materials as quickly as possible before they try to engage on either Malabuka or Murstache or the boss. And it already looks like Malabuka or Murstache are luring that boss to the high ground.
Look, if I'm Malabuka Murstache here, I'm not letting that slide. This is the last match of the day. You know that Malabuka Murstache are basically almost guaranteed a qualification to the upper bracket. Meanwhile, Aqua Noah, they're not. Aqua Noah need that Victory Royale in this last match. So if I'm Malabuka Murstache, I'm taking this early game engagement no matter what after they're done looting, taking home that boss. So we'll have to see who ends up taking it, as now they're gonna regroup.
Yeah, quickly scrambling around. Murstache has a decent chunk of shields missing, but he got himself enough time so he can start to replenish. And they're separated. Aqua on the other side. He gets spotted out. Murstache can't build to save himself. Accidentally on the zip line. He goes skating to a knock all the way on the low ground. And that's a big elimination because now Aqua not only has the points, the Storm Surge, the medallion, and the mythic weapon. And he has a line of sight onto Malabuka as damage continues to pour out by Noah. Could be a big elimination and a chance to not let them survive. That way you don't have to worry about these juggernaut of a team later on in this game.
Yeah, I don't really know what you do if you're Malabuka here. That's going to be the unfortunate end for them in this final match of the day. The good news is with the amount of points they had, they should be guaranteed into the upper bracket tomorrow. So they'll have 3 matches to try and get top 25 at the start of the day. And then if they are unable to do that, another 3 matches to try and get top 15. Both qualifications through consistency. But for Noah and Aqua, what they want now is that Victory Royale.
Yeah, they got to get close to it regardless. Because with 14 points, you need a high elimination game with a 2nd place if you're not going for that win. So it's all or nothing for them as Dexy and Eclipse end up in an early game exchange towards the low ground. A little bit separated, which we've seen work out for teams of 4. The double angles might be fruitful for them as Eclipse is still trying to attack from above. Dexy not landing the shots necessary. Doesn't even get the piece control to go on over to his side. So they're still getting back down little by little, but that second angle that I was talking about really playing the difference here in this fight, but it's only going to be a trade.
Dexy now has been knocked down. It looks like the 1 versus 1. How is it going to end? They're going to trade, Jacob. We're going to get another 2v2.
Yep, revive for revive. Dexy obviously has the med kits, making sure to pass them around and build some extra space to make it that much safer for them to try to survive. On the other side, it doesn't look like they're replenishing too much HP or shields. So they have to be very, very careful how they approach the situation from here on out.
Are they going to continue with the engagement, though? Both players in a bit of a shock now, having lost their duo partner. Traded the revive back up, picking them up. And now they're kind of like, huh, should we do that again? Should we fight again? Maybe we should just disengage. We've done a bit of damage. You know, we'll take our own paths and see each other later in the match.
So much action going down around the map. Oh, no, I know what's coming.
Onto Vico.
Oh, no. He just had no idea. Didn't hear it coming.
Wow.
That's actually not a knock. That's not a knock. That's a full elim. And you know what that means? Vico and Flixie are out of this game. But just like some of our competition that we saw fall with Malibu and Mustache, they have it locked in for another upper bracket appearance tomorrow.
Yeah, they're #1 on the leaderboard, not counting the players that already got the victory royales by far, too. 258 points versus 196 for second. They were dominating in terms of consistency. Unfortunately, won't be getting that golden ticket.
Separated towards the outside. Got to be careful in these prolonged fights, especially when the zone begins to pull away, because when you know you don't already have a lot of materials and you're kind of just trying to hold your spot, you're expending a lot of materials. And you can see it's less than 10 builds left. It's almost all or nothing for him. He's trying to change targets, catches opponents off guard, but they're not really taking the bait. At least not taking it just yet. And he's using this staggered position as a chance to try to fake him out yet again. He does have the crash pads if he does want to try and disengage, but I don't think he wants to leave without at least getting the reboot card first.
Doesn't have a lot of options either, to be fair, with 2 players surrounding him and only 2 builds. You just got to hit your shots here. I'm not sure if the opponents have that much materials or anything either, though, because they're not playing entirely aggressive. Medkit being popped. Being in the edge of storm as well, you can see there's another duo on Mount Olympus with both arrows looking directly at them. They know there's a fight going down, and they're just waiting to clean it up.
Even through all this, though, he looked pretty calm there when the player cam did show up. Doesn't look stressed. And for the Monk and Fireman, they're just going to kind of disengage on out. They at least got 1 elim, and this is how they were able to get it. Just the angles. He just ended up in a box that wasn't him. You saw the other side was quickly edited open. You got to be careful in those situations that you make space for yourself and you don't end up in your opponent's box.
Thomas HT Queasy now in a surge base. I like this. This is looking like a efficient 2024 surge base. You said it yourself. Block off the crash pads. Nice little cone edits.
And they're near a couple nitro rings as well, and other cactuses on the ground. And you saw, like, during the games, they're breaking down the surge bases relatively close to a lot of the cactuses. This is exactly why. Just waiting for a lot of those opportunities where the teams, whether it's a south zone or not, do rotate towards the south side of the map, or at least as close to a cactus as possible. So, I mean, if you set up one of those bases in the center of all the cactuses, I feel like you're going to have the best shots at getting surged.
True. True. We'll switch over to a part of the map that doesn't have cactuses, as now these players battle it out. But with the amount, there's 3 different duos looking at this engagement right now. Kidduo Nebs, the first 3 games for this duo, they got 10th place exactly in all 3 matches. Unfortunately, the most recent one, they fell earlier. We're not able to keep up with that consistency. Seeing that now it is the last match, hopefully they can make something happen. But against Chap and Teeny, it's not going to be easy.
A team that kind of loves to fight. Just waiting for any opportunity, whether they take the fight to you or you jump onto them. It's never going to go easy. I feel like they're just kind of maybe trying to fake it out. Nebs is farming up. They do have their eyes, and it does look like Teeny and Chap Gonna use those dashes. Maybe mix it with some nitro. They're staggering themselves in the zone, but for good cause, because they just want to make it so far out of their line of sight so that way they can eventually start to rotate in and they don't have to worry about too many teams.
Rotate's gonna begin. They have the River of Sticks, so they can use those dashes to do it more efficiently. Middix and Yasin. Ooh, gotta be careful. Nitro drone. Gonna get cracked here by, I believe it's Fast Strokey and his duo partner.
And we've seen Fast Strokey and Robound take a couple of fights early on in some of the games so far. Some of them working out for them, others not so much. You can kind of see the differences when you don't necessarily have the cactuses. You got to fight for your surge outright. And they're not just trying to do that. They're trying to do 2 birds, 1 stone. They're ready to fight for their spot, fight for their surge, but they have elevated themselves so far above the Nitro Drome. They're hoping to see as many teams rotate as possible. So I just kind of want to hope for them, give them the benefit of the doubt that their surge so far at this stage of the game is A-okay, but you've been talking about how high that Storm Surge threshold is when it actually pops off in Zone 6 and 7. I don't think anybody's going to be comfortable in Zone 3.
It's crazy how many of the top duos have gotten eliminated so far. I mean, the two duos with the most eliminations, Merstash Malabuka, Vico Flixie, they're both out of this game. Even the 3 out of the top 5 duos are also eliminated already. I wonder if they were playing kind of extra aggressive to go all in. We saw how Vico went out. It was pretty unfortunate from the skies with the crash pad. Merstash Malabuka as well just didn't come out on top in the early game engagement, but all of this to happen in the last match of the day.
Especially when
Kind of
76
unfortunate.
points is the threshold as well. Like, for all these players that are well above, you know, I'm not sure there's too many of them playing for just straight consistency, and they just didn't even see it come. And luckily, he was able to kind of create some distance while they were in the skies. Teammates there trying to alleviate some of the pressure as him and Hydro just trade off a couple shots. No confidence building moves just yet. But either way, Hydro and Kaido still got to rotate in this direction if they want to find that safety of the zone.
Nitro saved Flipmonk there. Was able to go fast enough for his fire and actually to not get landed on, but he might get landed on now. Hydro, great job of escaping that box before his opponents could piece him up. Now, a bit more cautious on the angles he's taking. Looking to see if he can get a bit of real estate, replace some walls without getting fully boxed up.
A little bit of a prolonged fight, which I don't see too many teams rotating in this direction, whether they hear the noise or not. The zone is moving towards the north, maybe a little bit of a western lean on it. And that's why they're feeling the confidence to continue to try to move over on this position, take multiple angles before they finally disengage on out. It's not worth their time anymore, especially the way that team down below is playing. They're kind of turtling back in their boxes, saying, hey, if you want to fight us, you got to come to us. And that's their territory. They probably have a couple boxes, ramps, cones built. So if Hydro and Kaido were to rotate in that direction, it'd be a pretty risky situation to put yourself in.
Take a quick look at what Snazy and Podesai have been doing by Mount Olympus. Oh, dangerous 3-2-1. On Radion. I don't know if Pred is going to make it out or not.
Not yet, at least. Some
North
flop-
zone, Jacob.
Yeah,
It's happened.
this time around. So you think Storm Surge thresholds are going to be a little bit lower in this match, or still just as high, but only for certain teams that you see staggered in the south, still in the zone?
I think it's going to be lower overall. If the average was 200 more than yesterday, I'll say compared to day 1 of semifinals, I think it's probably going to be at least the same as it was yesterday, maybe like 50 or 100 more, because people are a bit more aware of the surge strats. We'll see. Maybe we can get an update on how it looks as the game goes on. But for now, Snazy and Podesai have secured the bunker, and they're going to continue on with their rotate.
Just the 2 floppers don't allow me to build confidence for them. They kind of survive. Even if they do make it towards the zone on the other end, they're going to be missing a lot of HP, and then they're obviously going to use the floppers to get it back, which means they're going to have an empty inventory slot. Unless, of course, they have med kits, maybe some colas on the other side. And actually, Vidil and Reason, You know, we talked about where they're at on the leaderboard, which isn't as bad as we've seen some of the other players today. 24th place. At least they're giving themselves a chance to be inside of the bubble. And you're noticing a huge switch up, right? They went to Brutal Beachhead. They went Sandy Steps. They're going all around the map. But now this time around, they're getting coached a little bit by Veno, who's moved on over to NA. So they're taking the spot and the game plan that you'd see Clix and Veno use, and they're trying to incorporate that here in the last and final game of the day on EU.
Will it work out? Time will tell as Fastroki and Raban now made it back into zone. So many players boxed up on buildings that have already been built around Reckless Railways. You can use that to refarm your brick while also getting a decent position to have line of sight of the other players in the surrounding area. Amon still in with a bit of a ways to go to make it into zone. Even with the duos who are kind of boxed up on the snowy mountain, they will be blocking them, taking shots at them, but it should be pretty doable.
There's another team located nearby. But again, with the zone continuously pulling north, a lot of these teams will have already went towards the north. So it's not until maybe the next zone it continues to get more and more staggered on the south side of the zone. So timing is going to get more and more crucial. We're going to have less window to make any bit of mistakes on that push as Voltiax is still trying to stay alive. They know he's around here somewhere, as Almost did get his teammate back. We saw the struggles he went through earlier on in this game, and with the Nitros, they're making it easy to move into the box. Voltiax defends himself once. He actually goes back to back. They break into the box. A ramp separates them into two separate 1v1s, and Voltiax, here's your crown, king.
Okay, Voltiax, I see you. I see you. Issue is now, Jacob. Look, actually, I don't see too much of an issue. 4 medkits. He could technically just play the zone here with the amount of medkits he has. I don't know if he actually has the reboot card to bring his duo back. If he hasn't done it already, I doubt he does, but what a 1v2.
Wow, first shots.
Disgusting.
2 players, and all they were able to get is 2 shots off while he fired, what, 3, 4 shots in that same exact fight. Hey, that's what really separates our players at the top level versus anybody else. And he even has his spot in the upper bracket tomorrow solidified, but was now the chance to get his teammate back. Hey, we could see a second chance at life here.
Crosshair placement. You can see how important it is, especially with shotguns. If you connect those big shots. Wow, Aqua and Noah, 749 above. We were talking about how Storm Surge might not be as significant in this match because of the north zone and Cactus is not being put into play. That could be why, but in the meantime, you have players like T-Chips and Decay who are still 34 below, although they do have 0 eliminations.
Ooh, active surge. Is he going to get it off in time? Yes, he is. Barely off in time. Raban and Fastroki are on the other side, quickly backing up, making space for themselves. So a push like this isn't going to have as much success, or at least as much as you'd think it is. Luckily for a lot of players in this situation, Storm is going to momentarily deactivate, but only for the next couple of seconds as the zone continues to close. Desi's still getting attacked on the other side. Him and T-Chips got to rethink that situation. Meanwhile, with that damage just newly acquired, they're going to use that as an opportunity to rotate. They know it's a far rotation for them to make, and timing is of the essence.
Crash pad's getting put to good use. You got to be careful, though. Haijo Kaido. Are they going to get themselves into an engagement with Fastroki here? He does not need the damage. What they want is this campfire. Kaido was so close to making his first FNCS Grand Finals appearance in the last game when they had height. Unfortunately, they were not able to secure the victory royale. So far, every single duo that has secured a VR and made it to Grand Finals are returning finalists. So if that continues throughout the end of the day, this will be a first for the FNCS. But who knows, Jacob? Maybe some underdogs will take home the match here.
Oof. That's going to do it for Huddy and Kovacs. They're going to be on to the lower bracket tomorrow. But at least they still have their FNCS dreams alive. Hedra and Kerwa just trying to take advantage of anybody climbing up this mountain. The 37 below the threshold. So even though they're not in zone, they know they have a list of things they need to do before they find their spot comfortably there. And another max pull for everybody on this side of the map, which might be a blessing for some, knowing that everybody here is going to have to rotate. And before that happens, they're trying to take the fight to them, but forced to reload at the worst possible time. His opponent jumps over and lands the first couple of shots, drops him into the box. T-Chips takes a bite out of his opponent. Hedra now on the other side. He's just trying to break his way in, but they're still 6 below the threshold. He gets a shot on the knocked body, but that's going to get him above that Storm Surge. Even with 1 HP, he's just trying to survive. He has 1 bandage, and that's not going to be enough. Hedra drops him into the palm of the hands, takes him out, sends him back to the lobby. And luckily for him, Storm Surge deactivates because you saw him was still 59 below that threshold.
Will he be able to stay up, though? Pressure is being applied. If you look at the bottom right in the minimap, look how many duos are on the way to the zone. Hedra gonna have to make it alone. Cool in the zone as well still. We know he has 4 medkits, or had. He's now gonna have to use them up to stay up. See how Snazy was able to clean up here. An elimination or 2.
I say that was probably one of the best transitions I've seen in a while. I don't know who thought of that one, but they cooked up Pixie just trying to take fan 51 above the damage threshold. And that's what I like about this duo. They know exactly the situation they're in, and instead of waiting until they fall below, trying to out-heal it, they just get themselves in a good spot and allow themselves the flexibility to look all around the zone to try to get damage just like this. And they even get a knock on the way there. Quick cleanup opportunity, and they're going to be able to get the loot as well. There's not too many teams on this portion of the map, so it's not going to be too risky for them to go in, get the loot that they want, and even reposition afterwards.
Look how they're able to capitalize on these positions, like you said, from afar, not risking themselves danger to get these tags. And even with the refresh, that is going to set them up perfectly for the rest of this late game. With now 7th zone coming to a close, we'll see what side of the map these players are going to have to rotate to. It's going to be northeast. And now shortly after, the moving zones are going to commence.
And I kind of check it out right now. 9 of the 20 teams inside of the bubble are down and out of the game, which opens up a huge opportunity for any of those players that are just outside of that threshold to really rise to that occasion. Queasy and Thomas are going to be one of them. To start this game, the threshold was 76 points. So even though they're at 82, you got to believe that threshold rise along with it. Placement points are now beginning to set in. They're 141 above the damage threshold, 42 players left alive. If they fall down below Storm Surge here, though, the worst possible time for that to happen.
Yeah, the estimate of what they need to qualify to the upper bracket is 102 points, estimated. So Thomas, HD, and Queasy still have a ways to go. The job is not finished. They're actually just getting started.
That threshold actually moved up to around 80 points so far, give or take, maybe even a little bit more. Snazy and Podesai, 500 plus above the threshold. We've seen him make it very, very far into a couple of these games this weekend so far. Better late than never, though, as Tarps gets aimed out. He goes down. They immediately beeline for that loot. And that's something that we've seen throughout the weekend. Those builds, being able to just stretch them so far into this end game means so much in this situation.
Look at this, Jacob. We talked about it earlier. Aqua and Noah, they need the Victory Royale to qualify. They want to get that ticket directly to the grand finals. If they go down with less than 102 points, they won't even make the upper bracket. So they want to play for that win. This is why they're holding on to the high ground so aggressively, and they need to make something happen.
I feel like the only way they can even get the points is through a big win or some big elimination, 2nd place. So Aqua and Noah definitely have their job cut out for them today, and it's looking good so far. They've elevated themselves well above everybody else, but a max pull means they're gonna have to give it up momentarily and retake it later on in the same rotation.
Teeny Chap looking incredibly healthy. 307 turned into Mountain Goats here on the side of the ridge, but they got to be careful because now all these players are going to be building up by them. They don't want to get trapped in a sticky situation, as Thomas, HD, Queasy have made it up the hill, but they're 32 below.
Yeah, the biggest adjustment they made is elevating themselves. It's usually when we see them go down in the earlier games, they get caught in that low ground and all of that destruction, and now they have some elevation, but they're falling below that threshold from 38 to 45. Somebody's hot on the heels. There is opportunities all around for them to land the shots, but with zone moving, they don't really have the time. They have to quickly peek through, and there goes a couple misses, and that's the type of situation that you're in if you're Thomas and Queasy. But the flank finally comes in, a monster of a shot onto Thomas, backing him down, separating him from Queasy. The struggles will continue, but can they survive it this time around?
Meanwhile, Kaido looking to make his first FNCS Finals appearance. They were close in the last match, but now he has to pick up Haijo. No medkit in the inventory, just the Nitro Splash and a Flowberry Fizz to make it to zone.
Oh, and his teammate gets down as well. One tick is all he could take. He barely squeaks his way in. He got himself a little crevice to try to stagger, reload the weapons, use as much of the fizz as he can because he knows the zone is on his back. But now it's go time, trying to survive. There's a couple teams right in front of him, even with the nitro. He does bump into the wall just a little bit, and there's opportunities all around that he doesn't take advantage of, and he gets dropped for it.
Look above, though, in the atmosphere. Noah and Aqua are still holding on to height, but they got to be careful. Shots are coming towards them. The pressure has to be applied to second height, as it looks like opposing duos are trying to drop them down. They're looking down below, seeing where they can connect to, seeing who they can take their shots at to claim this position for longer. 41 builds is what Noah has.
There's a couple teams still in this game that are on the bubble. And these guys can really play disruption to any of those teams that are at least looking to make it to tomorrow. Chap's now in their line of sight. Him and Teeny, that's going to be their biggest threat because in a few games today alone, and if you include tomorrow, even more, that they've threatened for the high ground late in the games and won it.
Be careful. Chari, though, gets knocked down. Gura's left alone. Just one elim on the board, 18 HP. One tick and he'll be at 8-2 is what he can withstand. Be careful, though. It's a 104 shot, a crack. It's not enough for the knock.
Yeah, right on the Chap. That's going to hurt his game plan in his run here toward the end. Geary's still doing wonders here. Has another nitro. That one's going to have to be used instantly if he's looking to stay alive. And he runs into Nathan, who takes him down with ease. But one solo for another. You're still in that tough spot, especially when you're running out of builds. You don't have HP, and there's multiple duos right in front of you. But Shaco's towards the outside. He's outside of the bubble. He needs to finish strong here, but he goes down in 7th place. Is that enough points as Teeny and Chap, they contest for the high ground. Chap falls. Teeny now left by himself. Mirrored situation from the earlier games so far today.
Noah and Aqua cannot give this up. A second place will not be enough to make it to the upper bracket. They need to take home the victory royale, but has Teeny just stopped them from doing so?
Down goes Aqua. Teeny playing bracket buster. Even though he has his spot secured, he is ending dreams of everybody down below. There's going to be one strong duo. That's Slovey. That's
also
Nate. Aqua's there, or Noah's there as well with Aqua going down. Teeny, he's just trying to pressuring him. Everything comes crashing down. He still has the dashes to save himself. Builds to hold on to the high ground, but he runs into the other solo. Dashes above yet again. Teeny is just going all out, and he runs out of time. Fall damage is real. Noah has made it to a top 2, and it's down to a 1v1.
He needs to win. The second place will not be enough for the upper bracket. It's all or nothing, but Noah goes down, and Dexy is going to take that spot in the grand finals.
And is it going to be enough? That's the big question, because second place, they needed a certain number of eliminations if they were to make it all the way. But we know one team that did, Dexy and Eclipse. And welcome to the grand finals. Even this is one of those teams, they were letting their frustrations be known. They were getting hunted down 2 games in a row, but they finally made those adjustments. They've adapted when it mattered most, and Dexy pulls off a big clutch with just a sliver of HP.
What a way to finish it off. Our tickets to the grand finals through the victory royales have been booked, but so much is left to look at. I want to see how the leaderboard affected. Did Aqua and Noah make it? They were so close, but there's only 3 people that can help us answer that question. That's it for me and Jacob today. Let's head right back over to Frankie, Levin, and Minnie.
Thanks, boys. We will see you again tomorrow for the final day of the semi-finals. But we won't see Dexy and Eclipse because with that victory royale, they booked their spot in Grands next weekend. And again, it's another duo that's been flying under the radar, getting the golden ticket, Mini Minor. What did you think of that endgame?
Yeah, they've done it before. I mean, it's a team that have got a victory royale in this format. Levin mentioned it earlier on. They managed to clutch up. I think it was last season when they got a nice win, and Dexy actually predicted it. I don't think anyone could have predicted that there at the end. It just seemed like a bit of a madness all the way up on height. Who was going to take it? Ultimately, again, it was the low ground team that ended up doing it, and Dexy actually had no med kits left after that final one from Noah. So he just had to sort of hope that Noah would drop down, which he ended up doing, which ended up winning the game.
I mean, look at that. He's literally 1 tick away. 1 tick would have been all it took to end that game for him. And look, I said at the start of the day, I could see a Dexy and Eclipse winning a game, right? There are a team that has game-winning potential that has just been slept on. They did it in this format last season in a bit more impressive style, right? It was a bit cooler when they did it last major, but I don't think they care about how cool it is. They're in grand finals at the end of the day, and that's what's most important.
I'm really curious to know who did make it to the upper bracket, though, as well, to have the best chance of a shot at the grand finals next weekend, because there are a few jurors who are looking like they're in trouble going into that game. One of those jurors was Thomas and Queasy. They managed to work them way up to 27th place going into game number 5-11. We're still waiting to find out if they made it to uppers tomorrow.
I mean, yeah, the big thing with them was obviously the sort of resurgence in the last 2 games, right? And again, you leave it down to clutches once again. The Queasy won this game. He couldn't stay alive as long as Thomas did last game. I think they might have just done enough mini to stay in. Well, it's going to be very close for them, but I think they barely are just going to be in that top 25 for upper bracket tomorrow.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. They definitely deserve to. I think they're a team that we want to see in grand finals. Maybe their performances haven't been so deserving of a grand finals place, but I think they're just one of those teams that definitely have what it takes to put on a big show in the grand finals. And yeah, overall, it hasn't been absolutely star-studded performances from these guys. They've struggled a lot when it comes down to the Storm Surge aspect because, of course, they have to rotate so far. That comes with its whole load of issues as well. So I'm really hoping they're in that top 25.
Well, Reason and Vidil started off today's semi-finals action with a lot of momentum, it seemed like, on their side. And then they've disappeared and they've just headed down the leaderboard to the point 11 where they are in trouble as well.
I mean, yeah, it's been another case of, like, you know, we categorize these 2 teams as sleeping giants, right? And for the most part, they've both stayed asleep for most of the weekend, it feels like, you know? When are they going to finally wake up? I think in terms of points, Reason Vidil ended just ahead of Thomas and Queasy. So if I'm saying I think Thomas and Queasy barely made it in, I think the same applies for Reason Vidil. I reckon they probably just squeezed their way in, but we have to see.
Yeah, man.
Well, why don't we see? Right now? I'm sorry to interrupt you, Midi Minor, but I know the standings are ready. So let's take it away, boys. And there we go, landing straight on the page. No Ryan Aqua, even though they managed to get second, they've just missed out. But in 23rd and 24th place for Deal and Reason and Queasy and Thomas respectively. They made it to the upper bracket, which means they're in with a good shot of making grands, where we would say they belong, Mini Minor.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the job's not done for either of those teams. They still need a good performance tomorrow, but they'll be relieved that they can make it into that upper bracket because, of course, if you don't know, top 25 out of a 50-player or 50-team lobby, I should say, do qualify straight to the grand finals tomorrow in upper bracket. So 50% of the lobby will make it through. They'll want to be in that top 50%. And of course, all these other players that are on the screen right now, they've also qualified through to the upper bracket. But I'm sure there's so many names on there like Janice and Pixie, Mustache and Malibuka. They would have been yearning for that win. They do not want to be playing tomorrow, but they put themselves in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta take what you've played for. I mean, the big thing there is obviously they're not done yet, right? You go into lower bracket day 3, and there's just a chance for you. There's hope for you. 3 games, getting top 15 in those games is what will do it. It's gonna be intense though, because yeah, there are some very interesting dynamics that can go at play here in terms of just different teams, and if they aren't able to make it through, what does the grand finals lobby look like, etc. So it's gonna get interesting.
Do you think we're going to see any upsets, Mini Minor?
I think we could, honestly. I was expecting a lot more of the bigger names to have already qualified through. This is quite uncharacteristic for us here on EU. It seems like usually we have a lot of the smaller names, a lot of the lesser known names that are qualifying through on the final day. But this is going to be a big test for these teams because some of them might not have found themselves in this position before. So putting it all on the line for tomorrow, 3 games as well in each upper bracket and lower bracket. It's not going to be easy. So there's a chance there's an opportunity for slip-ups.
11.
Of course we're gonna see some upsets, man. That's what it's all about. Like, I think when you look at how things have been so far this season in EU, it's been, you know, clearly a changing of the guard, it feels like at times. So I'm sure we'll see some upsets, yeah.
Yeah, I do wonder if one of those upsets will be Queasy and Thomas, but hopefully they can take a look at their early games, sort out that surge, and put on a show tomorrow, because we know Thomas in particular is capable of it. Unfortunately, though, boys, that's all we've got time for this evening. Thank goodness we've got more Fortnite action coming your way tomorrow. And, of course, North America is coming up later this evening. So do check in with Zeke and the gang. Keep it locked in, because let's face it, there's some European faces that we are missing who are competing in that region right now and taking that region by storm. For now, though, thank you so much for watching. We will see you tomorrow to find out who qualifies for Grands. But for now, let's sound that horn.